Yeah, we're going to try something new today. But I have a feeling we're going to have a tough time finding theists. If we could find some theists to come on one at a time, and then an atheist, not me, a different atheist, come on one at a time. So it'd be 3 people in the screen. And we need a very specific claim. Very specific. So let's say it's with Christianity, it would be that Jesus rose from the dead. What would change your mind on that? And what would convince, or what would the atheists say it would take for them to believe Jesus rose from the dead? With Islam, it could be something like Muhammad was the final prophet and heard the very words of Allah, and the very words of Allah is contained in the Quran. Muslims, what would change your mind on that? Atheists, what would change your mind that that is true? Conversely, if an atheist makes a very specific claim that there are no gods existing, what would change your mind on that? Yeah, atheists are going to be kind of boring because that's the only claim they could probably make. Right? Because that's all atheism is. Atheism is nothing. Sorry, atheists out there. You really are nobodies. You're nothing. But it's true. That's all you don't believe. That's all you believe that doesn't exist. So the room's already open. If you could do me a favor, if you are on social media and you have friends who are theists who could actually call in on a Thursday midday, let's lower the United States productivity right now and get them off working and into these types of conversations. And I really want to make this, this is not going to be a shit show. Oh, sorry for my language. Manure show. This is going to be, like, honestly, I want people to honestly say what would honestly, sincerely change their mind. So many times we get bogged down in the minutia and the details, when really this is the real issue. This is the real issue. What would change your mind? And then we can explore, would it really change your mind? What you're asking for reasonable? Like, I know theists, Christians especially, they don't like it when I tell them what would change my mind. But I don't want to have like an argument. I want to have understanding. So I'll moderate. Thank you, Daniel Seamster. I believe in the flying man. Should I change? Yes, you should have no idols before thee, not even the flying man. Okay, we got one theist. Flamio.
Yes.
But you don't have any specific claims, do you?
I do have specific claims. So, well, guess I don't. Well, yeah, I do.
Okay, tell me the specific claim.
So, my definition for God is an object of worship, idol. So basically, if you want to convince me that no gods exist, then you have to convince me that no one worships anything. No one worships anything, or my definition is wrong and use a different definition that makes sense. So if you define God as something that doesn't exist, then I say your definition doesn't make any sense. It doesn't
okay, but we can try this. We can try this. So your claim is that a God exists.
Yeah, God exists because gods are idols, pretty much.
When you say God exists, are you making the claim that an actual entity separate from all humanity exists?
There's some that are separate from all humanity. There's some that are groups of humans, and some that are just humans themselves. So,
like, for example, if every human, every intelligent life that's made of atoms were to die, would this God still exist?
Probably not. Well, unless you assume that everything in like the whole cosmos is God, I would say probably not.
Okay, so then you're basically a flag waving phony atheist. I mean, you're a flag waving phony theist. You're really an atheist.
Oh, come on! That's what TMM says about Jordan Peterson.
No, because when I asked you the question, if every piece of intelligent life in the universe, every person, every entity that's made of atoms, were to be extinguished, gone, non-existent, would a God still exist? Your answer is no, probably not.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying you define God as what people think in their minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think.
Now bring me the line feed. Bring me the line feed. Tell me, give me the person who says the gods don't exist.
Right, but I don't think any atheist on the planet will disagree with you on that. That if you're saying a God exists in the mind of a human, yes, you're right.
Okay, bring the atheists on. I want to go ahead and eat them. Bring me the
No,
line
but there's
feed.
no claim to disagree with. Any atheist I bring on here is going to agree with you that if that's how you define God, that's just a no-brainer. That's just science.
Okay, then why they say God? Then why they go on and say, "Well, God's a supernatural thing that doesn't exist"? Would that they come on with that nonsense?
Okay, that you mentioned the word supernatural. What can you make a specific claim about the supernatural that an atheist might disagree with?
Well, no, because I define supernatural as set of things we can't imagine or draw. So
Yeah.
if we can imagine it or draw it, it has to be natural by definition.
Your problem, Ofamio, I think, is that you don't have a specific claim that would like every. I think I could be wrong. Someone in the live stream chat can let me know if they disagree with me. But I think if you're defining supernatural or God as just imaginations of humans, atheists are going to applaud you. Yeah, we agree. So we need a claim
then they'll go crazy and say gods don't exist, and they just contradict themselves. That's ridiculous. They agree,
but they're defining God but they're defining God differently
they
than
say
you.
God's imaginary. Then they say no, they don't even exist. That's a contradiction. That's nonsense.
It's not Flamio. Can you understand why it's not? Flamio, can you understand why it's not a contradiction if their definition of God's different than yours?
Yeah, if the definition of God's different than mine, it won't be a contradiction. But when they make their definition that well, God's a thing that doesn't exist, then that's not even a valid definition.
Yeah. Okay.
So bring me the bond feed. I want to be an atheist.
I honestly don't think anybody's going to disagree with you, so I'm going to let you go. Will. Hi, Will. Pleased to meet you. I don't think we've ever talked before, right?
No, we never have. No.
Okay. Are you theist or atheist?
Sorry, atheist. I wanted to get in the queue, but it looks like the theist might have gone.
Yeah, well, you agree with him, I'm assuming, that the existence of gods are in the imagination of humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's no claim of disagreements. There's no need to change anybody's mind because everybody's agreed.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you prove that something is imaginary? That's a little tricky. Or how do you even disagree with that?
This is why. Now, this is maybe I'm biased, but this is why I prefer to have a classical, or not a classical, historical conservative type Christian or Muslim or Jew or even Hindu come on, rather than this fuzzy. Like, if you're a panpsychist, no, please don't call in. I mean,
right? It's something that some sort of apologist or someone who at least has a concrete foundation. I think that's a little. It was a little too abstract, really.
Yeah, a concrete claim that
definitely.
The atheist and the theist disagree on, and then we can talk about what would change our mind about that claim.
Right. Definitely. I can at least, I suppose I can at least tell you what my concrete, or what would change my mind, even though.
But don't tell me now. We got to. So
wait.
Yeah, we're gonna wait. So theist, please call in. You can just be the eye candy for now.
Great.
I was watching the Masters before this. Do you like golf?
I actually have a friend in Augusta right now who's volunteering there.
Oh, really?
Yes, he had a goal, a bucket list goal, I think, to play at Augusta once in his life, and so every volunteer gets the chance to, once the tournament's over, of course, get a free round at Augusta. So as long as you don't, I guess, ruin your time volunteering, do something crazy, but they let you card up with other volunteers and get you a free round. So
Excellent.
yeah, he'll play there. I myself, I don't watch a lot of golf. I play disc golf, but it's completely different.
Oh.
So yeah.
Yeah. So you're a bit of a
Yeah.
nerd.
Oh, a bit. I dabble in nerddom, we'll say, right?
I got to say this, even if no theists call in, that's a good thing.
Okay.
You know why?
Sure. Tell me.
Because I am very confident that there's plenty of atheists who, like yourself, who are willing to call in. And it speaks volumes when I am begging for polite, civil conversations of what would change people's minds. I am trying my hardest to have a conversation to understand each other. And if the world, the small world that watches this channel, sees that atheists are more than willing to do that and theists aren't, that looks really bad on the theists. And the theists don't want to look bad. So theists don't, Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, don't be scared. Just, this is not going to be gotchas. This is not going to be, you need to change your mind. No, this is what would change your mind. And then we'll explore those things.
Yeah, well put. I've got several friends in the theist circle. I live in the Bible Belt in the States, so it's, I mean, throw a rock around here and you'll hit a church kind of thing. So,
well, do you have a theist friend that you could call right now, or message or text?
let's see.
Because they probably would feel very comfortable because they already know you.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually occasionally we will do a Bible study together. Because I'm a huge fan of textual criticism. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
So I'll study Ehrman and the other scholars incessantly, and I like to pick his brain about it. And he's fairly open-minded, but he is I mean, staunch Christian for sure. But
Those are the best.
he's a good guy.
Those are the best kinds.
Yeah, I think so. And he's willing to have conversations. All right, I've texted him. We'll see if he's working or not. But yeah, he's probably the only open-minded. I don't again.
Yeah,
not to
careful.
sound- right.
Because
He's the most open-minded Christian I know. I'll say that much.
yeah.
Well, I think there are plenty of folks who can have those conversations though. So
The thing is, even the title of this live stream, like what would change your mind, I think, I don't know what the percentage would be, but a large percentage would just come on and say nothing.
I think that's probably true. And that to me speaks to a divide, I think, in society in general. I think a lot of us we very much want to hold on to whatever we believe, be it theism, atheism. It's hard to change folks' mind. So and I think that a lot of people don't think about what would change my mind.
Yeah, good point.
You know, I think that it probably takes some self-reflection that most of us aren't comfortable with, to think, oh, well, if this thing happened, then I really would have to start questioning what I believe, you know?
Like, I'm even thinking what my wife would say, and I honestly don't know the answer. She might say nothing. But she might also say, because, I mean, there just has to be a God. But this is why I want a very specific claim, like, and with Christianity, you can find them. With Islam, you can find it. Let's not even talk about the existence of God per se, like, but this specific type of God, theism.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
Jesus being raised from the dead, Jesus walking on water, Jesus being God incarnate, Muhammad being the final prophet, Muhammad writing the Quran, the very words of God, maybe flying into the heavens on a winged beast. Whatever you believe that's core to your religion, make that claim, and then let us know what would change your mind on it. I kind of fear that maybe it's over 50% of theists would just say there's nothing. I could ever learn, say, hear, that would change my mind because of my personal experiences.
Yeah, you might be right there. I'm inclined to agree with you. I think that, and probably a lot of atheists would say the same thing, though, right? There's really not.
But you know what? We could do this. Like, even if you're a theist and you right now say nothing would change your mind, maybe still call in, make that statement to make sure that that's true, and then Will here will ask you some questions about, okay, could this possibly change your mind or move the needle a little bit? Like, for example, if someone truly believes that Jesus lives in them because of some type of personal experience, and then let's say Will brings up psychology and how we know psychology works, and if you were to get a master's degree in psychology and understand how the brain works and how we sometimes see things that are not there, hear things that are not spoken, if that would change your mind at all.
Yeah, there's plenty of good questions. I mean, things that my friends would ask me during my deconversion, we'll say. Some of those things come up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, happy to do that. Happy to talk to a theist I haven't met before.
Rebecca from Bread of Life has already said nothing would change her mind. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, and fair enough to have such strong conviction, I think can be admirable. I think it's certainly, you have to ask why you have such strong conviction, though. To me, anyway.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I want to make clear is, theists, please call in. And when you do, if you make a statement of nothing would change my mind or X will change my mind, I'm going to encourage Will and any other atheist and myself to believe you at face value. We're not going to say, I don't believe that would change your mind, or we're going to believe you at face value today. Okay. But then we're going to ask the same thing for the atheist. If an atheist says, this is what would change my mind about Islam, about Christianity, please don't say, I don't believe you. Just say, okay, I'm going to assume you're telling me the truth. And then we're going to explore those things.
Certainly. Yeah. I'm not in the business of gaslighting people on the internet. So I'll trust you. You know yourself better than I do.
Well, the reason why I say that is I'm just reminded of a clip I saw of Inspiring Philosophy recently, where he made the comment, atheists say, well, just show me the evidence and then I'll believe. And I think he said something like, and I'm paraphrasing, like, no, you probably won't. Human psychology is so complex. And he's right there. But we're not just going to assume that people are lying today.
Right. Certainly not. No. And I'm definitely not an expert in human psychology. I don't know. We all react so differently to different things.
Well, I don't have a master's degree in psychology or neuroscience, but I pretend to have those here on YouTube.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair. I won't make you prove it. So we'll take you at face value then. That's fine.
How can an atheist know what would change the mind when there's no definition of what God is, and therefore you can never know what is evidence for it? Vinny, good question. But this is why I said earlier, we need a very specific claim. Mm-hmm. So when the theist comes on, they say something like, I believe, let's say in the Christian God, I believe Jesus was God in flesh. Then we got something to sink our teeth into, right?
Definitely. Yeah, because theism has many flavors, and each of them have different ingredients, different proofs, this is why my God is real, or whatever the case is. So we can examine each of those in a vacuum. We don't necessarily have to lump them all together. You can. I think that's the scientific reasons that people are atheists or non-believers or whatever the case. That can help. But if you've got a specific truth claim, Christian, Muslim, etc., we can examine that more specifically. So I think there's reasons, not to believe each of them specifically.
And I'm glad you called in, because you seem like the type of guy that being civil is natural to you. Like you're not gonna pull a Matt Dillahunty here, right? And start swearing.
Oh no,
and hang up on them.
no. Unless my internet drops or something happens and I have to leave. No, I'm not. I'm not in the business of fighting on the internet. You know, I've lost more of those fights than I don't want to start anymore. Come on.
And Mr. Logo makes a great point. If God is listening right now, he can also call in.
That's true. That's true. I don't know what the Wi-Fi is like in heaven, so I'm not sure.
So God, what would convince you don't exist?
Right. Oh man, wouldn't that be a conversation?
Okay, we finally have a theist caller, and one I know. Baked Alaska, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up, man?
I'm very happy you called. You don't show your face usually, right?
Yeah, I usually don't. I got to spiff myself up a little bit.
Okay, well, I'll just screen capture your BA, Bachelor's of Arts. And Baked Alaska is not the Baked Alaska other people think you are, because apparently there's some other YouTuber named Baked Alaska. But
exactly.
Okay, so Will is an atheist. You're a Christian, because I've talked to you before.
Yep.
Can you make a very specific claim that's very core to what you believe about your religion, and then state what would change your mind on that?
Sure. So as a Christian, I believe there's a God, and that he was embodied by Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ lived on earth and was teaching the gospel, and was crucified, and then was resurrected. And so that's sort of the core of the belief.
Bodily or spiritually?
I'm sorry?
Bodily or spiritually was he resurrected?
Bodily.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's what I was going to say. Like, that's something that I think Christianity on that level is falsifiable, because evidence that suggests that he wasn't resurrected, archaeological evidence, historical evidence that could be uncovered.
Okay, good. So now we know the claim. The claim is that Jesus was God, died, and rose again bodily. I want you to be as specific as you can, and Will, listen carefully, because I'm going to ask you to rephrase what he says in your own words.
Certainly.
So, Baked Alaska, be as specific as you can and tell us what would change your mind on that. What would you say? No, I don't believe this anymore.
So I would say that on a general level, it would be evidence that disproves the resurrection story.
What type of evidence? Be very specific.
A combination of historical evidence, which I guess could be in the form of, in any form that historical evidence comes in. So whether it's archaeological, testimonial evidence from writings and things like that, that either shed false light upon or otherwise disprove the story of the resurrection.
Okay. We're going to explore that further, but first I want Will to just repeat back what you've heard from Baked Alaska.
Sure. So, I mean, firstly, it sounds, it's your, I don't want to say standard Christianity. That's not meant to be, any type of way. It's just the basic claim of Christianity that Jesus rose again. So that's what kind of Christian you are. Your specific claim that you would need is some kind of evidence that would disprove the resurrection. And I mean, I guess to say historical evidence, so writings or claims, that's what you would need. I think some kind of concrete, here's the evidence.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. And before we explore that deeper, Will, tell Baked Alaska, your stance on what he just said, and what would change your mind to believe it.
Well, my stance on what he said in terms of what he needs, or
no, in terms like, do you believe what he said is true, and what would it take for you to change your mind on that?
Well, yeah, so I believe that he believes it's true, certainly, and he seems you know, that is the honest Christianity. I think that is the belief. I don't believe it. That's, you know, part of why I'm an atheist. I don't believe that. And to change my mind, it wouldn't take any, and this will tie into, I guess, kind of the questions about what he needs, but it wouldn't take historical evidence per se, like Baked Alaska would need to disprove that, because, well, for a lot of reasons. What I would need to change my mind on, did Jesus come back? And I'm going to try to not be too unfair, but I would honestly need Jesus to come again. If I'm to believe that he is who he claimed he was in the Gospels, I would need a near miraculous event. I think I would need him to come down and prove, not just to me, but to maybe all of us, that, you know, this happened. I've fulfilled the latter part of the prophecy. I'm here. You know, not even specifically in Revelations, but just Jesus comes back and, you know, and says.
Okay, Baked Alaska, in your own words, what would change Will's mind?
So basically, from what I take Will is saying, is that it would take the second coming of Christ.
Anything else? I heard something else you said.
Was there something else? I may have missed it.
I think, Will, you said something about miracles.
Yeah, just sort of generally, I would need that miraculous event. Like, a man just claiming it wouldn't do it, because anybody could walk around and say, I'm Jesus and I'm back.
Okay.
But if Jesus Christ came back and was doing miracles and being Jesus,
okay.
Okay, so now there's many
I see.
thoughts going in my head about what both of you said, but I'm not going to say them. I want Baked Alaska now. I want you to probe deeper. We're going to pick on Will first.
Yeah.
So what types of questions would you ask Will about this marker that would change his mind?
Sure. And then can I also ask him a broader question?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, Will, I guess I'm struggling a little bit, because the claim that I made is basically a historical claim about something that happened in the past. And you're saying that no amount of historical evidence could establish that claim. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And why is that? I mean, do you consider history to be a science, or how do you view history?
So science isn't, no, it's just plainly, I don't view history as a science, because science has a different method of proof than history does. So in science, you take a claim, you say, I think that if I drop this pencil, it will fall down. And then you can test that. You can repeat it. You can examine the weight of the pencil, different, you know, physics, gravitational, whatever, right? You can prove that over and over and over. In history, we don't have something so sure, right? We have, like, your historical evidence, for example, it would take writings. You said, like, a letter casting doubt or disproving something in the resurrection story. Well, we have those. You know, we have, for example, the Quran talks about Jesus and talks about how righteous of a man he was, but that he wasn't the Son of God, that he didn't rise from the dead. So we've got a historical claim casting doubt on that, but there's a bevy of reasons.
Okay, so we've kind of gone. Let's stick on you first, Will. But you made a great point there that I want Baked Alaska to respond to later. But what do you think about Baked Alaska? Why do you think he does not accept historical evidence on this issue?
Well, so that's what I'm kind of struggling to understand a little bit, because
and I can elaborate if it would help why I don't.
Well, let's first let Baked Alaska sort of summarize what you said.
Yeah, just to respond to what you said, and I understand it there's a logic to it on a certain level that I do understand. The reason I'm struggling a little bit is because even science sometimes looks back at things that happened in the past, right? Like whether it's on biological evolution, cosmology. Often science, the inquiry of science is looking backwards. And so you can't do experiments in the lab about something that happened in the distant past. But yet the scientific process still can explore those issues. through the process of abductive reasoning, drawing inferences, making observations, coming up with a hypothesis, etc. And I think those general principles apply to history as well. And I think history generally is classified as a soft science because there's a scientific, well, there's the historical method. But if the historical method was not based on something analogous to science, then I don't understand how we could ever establish any sort of objectivity to the historical process. And essentially, it seems like the historical process would not lead us to truth in any way that would be really reliable.
Yeah, okay.
And so
Baked Alaska, that's a great point that you just made. Will, how do you respond to Baked Alaska's, I think, good point that we use the historical method in other fields other than religion, and we don't question that? It seems like as much as you're questioning, how would you respond?
Certainly. And yeah, those are great points. I would point out that the evidence we talk about in history is different than the evidence you would talk about in science, right? So, and you even mentioned like biologists would look back at certain things in history and try to prove them. I don't know what specifically you might be referring to, but like hypothetically, they might look at the fossil record, things that actually happened, things were there. We'll say, no matter what the case is, though, you've got something physical, tangible, and I mean, for lack of a better word, natural in front of you. A historical evidence that's a claim, that's a letter, that's some kind of record or eyewitness account. That's way more easily falsifiable than an actual fossil, right? So the reason I don't accept historical evidence for proof of divine claims or any religious claims is that so many of those things could be falsifiable. So many of those things have counterpoints or differing views, right? And that criteria of, I guess, skepticism you can apply to many historical events, right? And have been, especially in antiquity, when we're talking about, so claims about Caesar have come under the same scrutiny. Claims about Plato, right? There are some folks who I think you would call them like Plato-mythicists or something, people who think Plato and Socrates may not have existed, right? So the issue with historical evidence as claims is there's never a consensus. There can be a majority, but there's not a 100% certainty because there's always an argument to kind of.
Okay, we'll pause it there. One thing I've noticed about this conversation between you two is you're not actually really talking, and I missed this, you're not really talking about Will's, what would change Will's mind. We're talking about what would not change his mind. So, Baked Alaska, I want you to address what would change Will's mind. And we're going to assume that everybody here is telling the truth. And he said the second coming of Jesus. What do you think about his marker of what would change his mind?
Well, on one level, I think I appreciate it because I think it goes further than I think if somebody is an atheist, they can take a very hardline position and almost defer on the question and basically just like kind of throw their hands up and say, listen, it's not on me. I don't have the burden of like falsifying my belief. It's on the person making these claims about the supernatural. So I appreciate that Will actually has put something forward that's tangible.
Do you think it's fair? A fair marker?
I think it's a start. I think it's a good starting point. I like the reason I went to about what would not disprove it is because the problem that I guess the issue that I sort of have with it is that if that's the test, I guess what my question would be like, is this a subjective question that would only apply to Will, or are we saying more broadly like as humanity? Because with the issue I see with Will's test is that you have to be alive. And so if Jesus did come back and we witnessed it, the next generation is all of a sudden it's going to be back to being a historical claim again. And somebody in Will's shoes.
Excellent point, Baked Alaska. Okay, Will, I want you to respond to that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It would be a historical claim. Now, it would be interesting, especially in the modern world, if Jesus were to come back, because we could record it in a much more real way than a letter or some kind of document, right? We can kind of take a more, I don't want to say certain, but a more, at least a closer look at certainty with that.
Will, would you be
But
open to changing your marker a little bit to say that Jesus could come back more than once? So it would, like Baked Alaska's main point is at some point
sure,
it's going to become history and then you're back to square one. But if Jesus came back every 3 months or every 3 years, odds are he could see everyone, right?
yeah, schedule permitting, sure, yeah.
What do you
No, I mean,
what do you think of that, Baked Alaska?
Yeah, I mean, there could be some questions there. And I was even thinking, like, even prior to that, just like I need to school myself up on the theology, because I'm not sure if, like, in Christian theology, like, once Jesus comes back, if that's supposed to be like the end of days, and what that sort of signifies. So
sure.
that raises another set of issues.
Right, you're saying that it might be going against scripture and therefore what Will is asking might be impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, yeah,
And also, like, there's this concept that, like, in Christianity at least, belief and faith is supposed to be something that you do voluntarily, or else, like, it almost calls into question, like, why would God even bother creating, like, he could have created us, like, as robots, essentially, like, worshiping him, and that wouldn't make any sense. So the idea was that we're supposed to be able to do this through our own volition and our own free will. And yet, if the evidence is of such a nature where it's no longer, essentially, like, I guess what I'm struggling with a little bit is, like, it's almost like you're kind of taking it out of the category of belief and you're putting it almost into the empirical science category.
sure.
Yeah, go ahead and
Sure,
respond to
because-
that, Will. What do you say to the
Yeah.
accusation that your evidence is almost too good? Your marker is too good.
I would agree. And I think that it is unfair to theism in general to kind of hold it to such, I mean earthly proofs, really, because the theist claim is all, like, basically Baked Alaska said, it's supernatural. If you see it, you don't have faith, you have evidence. And so oftentimes I think that, and especially in apologist circles, they can run up against walls where they're struggling with proofs and evidence, but it's challenging faith. Like, you can't have faith if you have evidence, almost, I think.
Well,
And I think that
Baked Alaska, let me ask you this. Do you think Will would have no choice but to believe in Jesus if his marker is met?
Exactly.
I would disagree. I mean, let's use the gospel. There were plenty of Pharisees who didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God after seeing him perform miracles. There were plenty of people who didn't think
Yeah.
that he was the Messiah after seeing him cure lepers, right? So if all of those are real, if those stories hold true, I still have the same free will as a Pharisee, then I could see it and not believe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. I mean,
So,
I guess-
so Baked Alaska, did you change your mind on this now? Like, would you say that Will's marker wouldn't force him to believe?
I guess it's actually hard to answer that, because I guess the question is whether a person being objective, like, I guess somebody could be so biased and so non-objective that even when presented with sufficient evidence on an empirical level, still reject it. And so, like, I don't think Will is in that I think he's being intellectually honest. I think he's being objective. But therefore, then it almost, like, begs the question, like, if presented with sufficient objective evidence, it would almost be unreasonable not to accept it at that point. So, like, I don't know how to, like.
Or maybe he could accept it, just not follow it. You know what I mean? Like, he could.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah.
want to pick on Baked Alaska now. We've been picking on Will here a bit on his markers. But to summarize, what would change Will's mind is basically if Jesus came back to Earth, appeared to people, himself and other people, and did maybe some of the things he's promised to do. Baked Alaska thinks that might go against Scripture, and so therefore maybe it's impossible if Jesus was to do this more than once at least, and that it might be an unfair marker because it would force Will to become a Christian, and it gets into the category of knowledge instead of belief. Is that a good, fair summary
Yes.
from both of you?
Very fair.
Okay.
Yep.
So now, Baked Alaska, you said what would change your mind about Christianity is if there was some archaeological, historical evidence that, did you use the word prove otherwise?
Yeah, or I mean, or I don't know if I would use the word prove, but would provide provide a better explanation than the resurrection.
Okay, so Will, I want you to explore that
Okay.
marker and ask Baked Alaska questions about what would change his mind.
So it's tricky, especially given the last comment, to provide a better explanation. In my opinion, there are a load of better explanations than a resurrection. A lot of the hypotheses, whichever,
Yeah.
a lot of the ideas raised by textual critics like Ehrman, for example, that his believers believed he rose, maybe not bodily, maybe spiritually.
But Will, I'm
believed that he
gonna pause you there. Try to ask Baked Alaska questions instead of stating what you think and what Bart Ehrman thinks. Ask him questions to really probe his marker.
So, really, my first question, I don't want to come out too unfair, but I'm just curious about why you hold that the proof, we'll say the historical evidence you have now, is sufficient to believe that the resurrection happened.
So yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, I'll admit this, that like I'm probably coming to it with a certain degree of bias, where in the sense that I think subjectively I have a personal inclination to thinking that God exists, and therefore like I'm looking at the historical evidence from sort of that perspective. And maybe if my starting point was different, I would be interpreting things, through a different lens. So I think that's sort of like my starting point, which is that I think theism is true, and then working from that starting point, I'm looking back and looking at, like, for example, like when I look at Islam, I see the historicity of Muhammad and Islam being so much more in question and in doubt versus Christianity. And so it tends for me to be that there is this historical, we know from historical basis that there's pretty much consensus that Jesus existed and that he was crucified. And so that becomes like, I would say like part two is that like we know that, where with Muhammad, I think his historicity is so much more in doubt.
Okay.
And then, so then it becomes like what happened after the crucifixion. And again, like I think I'm biased because I'm a theist, and so like I'm much more willing maybe to accept the narrative than somebody who's not. I was raised Christian, for example. But so I would say that just the fact that and some of this is just what's attested to in the Gospels and in the Bible. I mean, that his tomb was found empty, and that the apostles.
So,
yeah.
do you mind if I jump in? I don't want to.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead.
So so specifically, the tomb was found empty. We can just talk about that claim. Why is it that you think that in the Bible, that because it says in the Bible the tomb was found empty in all the Gospels, why to you is that enough to accept that as historical evidence?
Well, I mean, I think the historical method is that, like, if you have like multiple attestations, like if you've written attestations that are independent, like that sort of becomes the basis of the historical method.
Okay, yeah, and that's fair. Do you? I don't know. I don't want to assume how much you know about like New Testament history or anything. Do we know now, essentially, though, that they're not unique attestations, right? That they do rely on each other. That the Synoptic Gospels all had the same source, right? This sort of thing. So
Try to phrase it as a question, Will, to him about that. Like,
okay. Well, so I guess I'll ask plainly there. Then, are you familiar, or have you heard at least some of the historical issues with the claims about the resurrection? There are several.
well, the claim Baked Alaska made was that he believes it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Baked Alaska. You believe that the tomb was empty, for example, because of multiple attestation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Will, ask him a question about multiple attestation.
Well, so are you familiar with any of the arguments that kind of counter the claim that there are actually multiple attestations? Like, they're different documents, certainly, but there's plenty of historical reasoning to question if they're actually different.
Okay, so Baked Alaska, how would you respond to that? What would be can you steelman the other side? Like, why would one say possibly that there isn't multiple attestation?
You're asking me to steelman it?
Yeah.
I would have a hard time steelmanning it. I mean, because I'm not very well versed on sort of the gospel accounts. You know, it's the type of thing that, and I can only speak for myself, but I can imagine a lot of Christians are like this. I was raised Catholic too, so we even read the Bible a lot less than other Christians do. Is that you'll hear a lecture, you'll be at a sermon or something like that. You hear the material, you filter it in, it validates what you're thinking, but you don't commit it to memory. You wouldn't be able to, like if I had to engage in that type of conversation, I'd have to like research it, prepare, see which apostles attested to what. So that's kind of like my knowledge is somewhat limited in that sense, where it's like it's not specific enough where I could then have like a very informed conversation, like steel manning and things like that.
Okay, that's fair. I think it's impressive that you can be honest and, hey, I don't know much about this. I think that's good. I'll say, to relate a bit, I was raised Lutheran. We also didn't talk about the history of the Bible. So my question is, I guess, because my position is there is evidence that counters these claims. There is this historical evidence that you're looking for. There are issues with the accounts that you're looking for. If you, I guess, look at those and can still say, I have faith and I believe it, that's one thing. But if you don't know them, I think it's trickier to really, at least from my perspective, it's trickier if you're not sure what the other claims are to say that certainly something happened. Yeah, if that's fair.
Will, are you familiar with the outsider test for faith?
No.
It's basically taking Baked Alaska's marker and applying it to a different religion to see if you would also believe that. So,
sure.
So, for example, it would go something like this. If the claim that Joseph Smith made was multiply attested, that he got the very words, the new and improved version of Christianity on golden plates, would you believe it, Baked Alaska? Would that be, it's multiply attested, saying something different than what the New Testament says? Would that be sufficient evidence for you to say, yes, Mormonism, at least that part, is true?
Honestly, on its own, no. That wouldn't. That would not be enough for me personally. I don't think the multiple attestations is like I think it's sort of almost like the starting point, and then you have to look at the full context, the full historical context, whether these stories are collaborated, whether there's conflicting information,
Okay, yeah. So that's a fair, consistent point. That it's a starting point, and I'm getting a feeling that will lead us into the cumulative case, which I don't want to do. I want to keep this very focused. And the marker that you said, Baked Alaska, that would change your mind about Christianity was some type of historical evidence to show that it's false.
Yeah, and like just so I could be a little bit more specific, like I have watched like several of Bart Ehrman's like debates, some of his lectures, and so like even though I lack the specificity now to kind of be able to like point to specific things, I would like for the purposes of like the steel manning question. That's why like I still have the view that I do, is because like I have looked at the opposing side, and during those debates I'll be like, okay, well he's making an argument, he's making a case, I'm just not convinced by it, and then I just don't remember the details of it all like
Okay.
afterwards.
Okay.
Will probably 15 minutes ago made a very good point, which I didn't give you a chance to respond to, Baked Alaska, but your marker is historical evidence that would demonstrate or show that Christianity is false, and Will brought up the Quran that says that some things in the New Testament are false. How would you respond to that? Because that meets your marker. It's historical evidence saying that Jesus never died on the cross, for example.
Right, exactly. So I think like each historical document needs to be considered sort of like on its own, standing on its own merits in light of the background information. And so like, I just, so it's not that just like anything that's written down becomes true, because we know that's not the case. And so it would something like the Quran would just is not convincing to me, because it basically, I mean, I think their theory is like that Allah like tricked everyone into thinking Jesus was crucified and that it was really another person.
Okay, so I want Will to respond here. Baked Alaska just said that not everything written down in history is true.
Right.
What's your question to Baked Alaska?
So how would we know then, based on what's written down, that anything is true in this religious circle? Like, how would we know then that the gospel's claims are true? Because really, to me, it's equivocal. It's a religious claim about a religious event with very little outsider input, right? We don't have any Roman documents about the crucifixion. How do we know that the gospel, those written events, are true?
Well, so I think what you have to do is look at the event in question. Like, so with the resurrection, you would have to come up with an alternative theory that better explains the event than the one that references the supernatural. So unless you think like Jesus didn't exist or he wasn't crucified, assuming that's the case, the question then becomes like, what happened to his body? Why did these people claim that they witnessed a risen appearance of him? How did this arise in sort of the context of first century Judaism, where there was really no concept of a risen Messiah like Jesus? It was, you had these failed messiahs, but then they were killed, and then that was it.
So, Will, I want you to respond to this. What would you ask Baked Alaska about right now? It seems to him the best explanation is that Jesus actually was God, died and rose again. What would you ask him about this?
Well, what about the more natural claims then is more unbelievable? Claims like, in some of these conversations, we can give certain, like, I'll grant you this to your argument. So I'll grant maybe the tomb is found empty. The body could have been stolen. That's a much better explanation than Jesus Christ rose from the dead. So what of the physical claims explaining parts of the gospel story are less believable than him being raised as a godly figure?
Yeah, so I mean, like, so I know there are these alternative explanations, but I don't think any of them I don't think any individual one has reached consensus within the historical community. And so they're kind of like that. I think that would be my main objection, which is like, you might point to that as a separate category and be like, it has to be a natural explanation. And you're just going, as like a methodological issue, you're just going to like
Sure.
default to that, but then then it becomes like, well, what is the specific explanation? Like no one particular explanation has the consensus of the historical community.
Sure. So this is one issue with historical evidence. So we're to me, we're jumping a little bit to the supernatural being the best explanation. However, there's nothing falsifying or really challenging the more natural explanations or hypotheses. So if those are presented and falsified and we're only left with a supernatural claim being the best example, sure, that's fine. But we don't have, in my opinion, there's not a reason to jump there when we don't have, I guess, reason to doubt the more natural claims, right?
Well, yeah, no, I kind of get that, but I guess the issue is like that there are problems with each of the natural explanations, and so like that's why none of them have like a consensus behind them.
So,
because
okay,
right?
what's your issue with some of the problems? That's not like consensus, because the historical consensus is never 100%. Really, I mean, that's not quite fair to say, but especially in antiquity, it's rarely ever Clayton,
Yeah.
Well, I want to wrap this up and get two new people in here, but
Sure.
I'm going to ask questions of both of you now, and just give very short answers. Baked Alaska, if Jesus never did rose from the dead, never was God incarnate, how do you explain the New Testament? How would you? Let's say we still have the New Testament exactly as we see it today, but Jesus is not God, didn't rise from the dead. How would you explain it?
Well, I mean, if that was the case, it was probably written by, there must have been some kind of conspiracy, like some committee of people got together to say, let's try to for political power reasons, let's come up with a new religion.
Okay. And Will, if a guy, and I think this is true even today, if a guy approached you and said, I am Jesus, how would you verify that? Like you said, your marker is Jesus coming back.
Yeah.
I could probably send you a couple of guys who claim to be the Messiah. How would you sift out the true ones from the false ones? The true one versus the false one?
Prove it.
What would you need?
I would need, first they would know me. They would know what miracle I would need. If it's Jesus, he knows who I am, and in my heart, he would know what I need to believe it. I would say, prove it. What's your miraculous event that will change me right now? If you're Jesus, do it. Whatever it is. I might not
Can you think of something
know.
specific that might convince you? A miracle?
Okay, well, so I have diabetes. Could he cure my diabetes? That would, in a second,
But maybe it's just some natural weird thing happened based on something you ate or whatever over time. You've been slowly, your diabetes is being better on your own. Like, wouldn't you just assume a natural explanation?
I could. That's a good point. I mean, I truly, the event would have to be earth shattering. It would have to be.
Okay, you're right. Being cured of diabetes is not earth shattering. Give me something. Like, what would you need to change your mind? Think big.
Well,
we're talking about God here.
$1 billion.
Well, no, I mean, if we'll tour heaven. We'll fly to the whatever they call it, but the first heavens. Take me, give me the Enoch tour. I want that kind of treatment.
Okay.
Show me where we're going. Show me heaven. If you're Jesus, let's go.
That's not bad. Going into space without a helmet and surviving.
Heck yeah.
With you and a few friends.
Yeah, let's get the Paloma, whatever it is. We'll go to the layers of heaven. We'll take a tour, get some pictures. God can sign like a t-shirt.
Okay, back to Baked Alaska here. If tomorrow in Israel, an archaeologist dug up a note that said Jesus was a fraud, I met him. He didn't do these miracles, and when he did, they were like just human tricks. Would that be enough for you to say, I'm out, Christianity's false?
No.
What if it was multiply attested to, and we found like 4 notes? They kept digging and all around, different signatures. The people even say in the first person, "I so and so from Damascus saw this Jesus Messiah character," and it's multiply attested. Would that change your mind? Would you be out?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so my question to you is: your marker was something in history that shows contrary evidence. I provided that for you, but it seems like the marker didn't do anything for you.
Yeah, well, because it's not just, it's not these pieces that are found in isolation. Like, it has to be something that is powerful enough to negate the better
But what is that
explanation.
powerful enough? That's what I think Will and I are trying to explore. Like, what do you mean by powerful? Do you mean like just, does it have to be 100 pieces independently found and attested? Is it just that Gary Habermas would be convinced? What is it? What's powerful?
Well, let's say we uncovered let's say we uncovered writings of an ancient historian from that time period that were detailed enough, that provided enough of from an explanatory power and explanatory scope, from some sort of those metrics that historians use to test competing hypotheses,
Okay,
that there was
good.
enough, something like that.
Okay, let's test your new marker. So, well, it's not a new marker, but a more specific marker.
Yeah.
If a well-known historian in the first century give a detailed analysis of Christianity, how it started, that he was there personally, saw that Jesus never rose from the dead, saw Jesus was thrown in a pit, there was no tomb, and explained the reason why this religion was developed was to give certain sect of Jews hope, meaning, and purpose because they felt sad from the Romans. And he goes into great detail. And he's a well-known historian. He says, I was there the day he was crucified. It never went black for 3 hours. The curtain temple didn't tear in two. Would that change your mind and say, I'm out?
It would definitely give me pause. I mean, I still think I would be a theist, but like I would have to consider it. And since I'm not a historian, I would also defer to people who did this with their full-time jobs, like if they looked at it and people's opinions that I respected.
So if Mike Lacona, Habermas, Dale Allison,
right.
if they all said, oh my goodness, this is huge, you would be out?
I mean, it would certainly give me pause. It's like I would take it into account. I would have to, because otherwise I'd be like being dishonest. I don't want to believe something that's false, and so just just because I'd rather know the truth, even if it's going to be the brutal reality, like there is no afterlife and all that. I'd rather know that.
Okay,
and deal with it.
I think we found 2 solid markers for both of you. What would change your mind? And we're going to end it there. It was very civil, very cordial, and I appreciate you guys.
All right, man.
Take
care. Well,
we'll see you.
Yeah, you too. Great to meet you.
Bud.
In fact, maybe if you both want to keep this conversation going privately together, you can do it through the comment section of this video later. I think that's a great idea. Hey, I got to pee. I got 2 people waiting. Hopefully one's an atheist, one's a theist. We're going to do a round 2, try this again. And I guess what I'll do is I'll play something funny while I go pee. Let's see. What do you guys think of that? Is that worth doing? I know it's not controversial and it's not like people yelling at each other, but I do think it's beneficial to do it this way. And I think it's good to stay focused on the specifics of what would really change your mind. Let me see here. Oh, okay. This is what I don't want. I don't want any panpsychics, whatever, coming on here. So I'm going to play this. Love the guitar. Didn't like the conversation. Be right back.
is what is expressed in things like remote viewing and astral travel and
You believe in
psychic
remote viewing and
experience.
astral travel?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Have you ever seen any remote viewing data? Have you seen anything from the SRI work that Putoff and Targ did back in the 70s at SRI? All right, have you looked into that at all?
Remote viewing, for the people who don't know, explain what that exactly is.
So remote viewing it's in the psychic realm of being able to sense things that are not local to you. In other words, being able to go find information, sights, sounds, smells.
Have you ever done that?
Whatever. Oh yeah.
You can do it?
Well, not very well, but I have done it. Yes.
Okay, let's try it right now. I'm going to write a number down.
This
Okay.
This is not something that you do.
I wrote
that
down a
you
6-digit number. I want you to remote view, come and look at it and tell me what it is.
That's not something that I can do that well. I can't sit here and just do it on
Is
demand.
there anybody who can do it well on planet Earth?
Oh yeah, Dick Allgaier, Edward Reardon, Daz Smith.
Do you
the
have
guys
Dick's
at
phone
Crypto
number?
Viewing. No, but go on to YouTube and look up crypto.
Can you
viewing
get
and go
Dick to
look
come to my channel?
I don't know. You'd have to try that yourself.
If Dick, on the other side of a whereby internet call, can guess my 6-digit number, I will start paying attention to you woo people. That was the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do here today. Okay, let's let some people in here. Get rid of that. Oh, you are radically moderate, is Nathan?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Hey,
And Guy or Guy? What do you go by?
Guy.
Guy. Okay, hang on. Let me.
you were saying at the bit I was listening to, can you get Dick to come to my channel? And Dick is here.
What's going on here? Let me. There we go. Okay, Guy, are you a theist?
I wouldn't say I'm a theist, but I don't think that I really agree with you on some things.
Okay. Well, we need a
Well, I
theist.
well, like, I wanted to ask you the same type of questions that you asked the theists, but in reverse.
So you want to pretend to be a theist?
Well, no, I was just wondering, like, if we could find out for sure that the things in the Bible actually did happen, then would you be a believer?
I would believe it's true. Yeah.
Well, not so much would you believe that the things happened are true. Would you then be a worshiper of God?
Yeah, that's a different question. I would have to. You're saying everything in the Bible is true, like even the Old Testament stuff?
Yeah, say we somehow could find out that all of the stories actually happened as it was written.
Like Jesus actually did command the killing of the Canaanite kids?
Everything.
Yeah, no,
Everything
I
was
wouldn't
written.
worship that God.
So isn't that more of an important question to ask theists than why do you believe it's true? Like, we're just asking, they don't really care about the evidence. So I'm saying, if they have all the evidence in the world, should they still think that it's good?
Yeah, that's a very good question, but it's not the question we're asking today. We're asking what would change your mind.
Well, that's what I think should change people's theist minds. If they could actually think, if they know for a fact that it's true, then shouldn't they see how evil it really is? That should change their mind. But instead, they're
Right,
saying,
but-
I don't know if it's true. I'm just believing these stories people are telling me about it. And they don't really want to think it's true.
I understand what you're saying. I think it's better just to ask them what would change your mind and explore that instead of saying, but your God did X, Y, and Z, and that's really bad, so you should change your
Well,
mind.
that's not what I'm saying either. I'm not saying anything. I'm not telling them what their God did. I'm saying if it's all true, then should we
But
be
you do
following
understand
them?
that there's a huge chunk of Christians who don't believe it's true. Like everything in the Bible is true, the way you
Okay.
think it is. Like they would say,
But so
who's
the
this
last time
guy?
Yes.
Like he's not representing me. I don't believe God had anything to do with the Canaanite kids.
Right. So, like, the last conversation though was was about like the evidence. And that's what I'm saying is there never will be the actual evidence. So if there was the evidence though, then should an atheist then become a believer? Just because the evidence shows that all these horrific things actually happened.
Yeah, and what did I say to that?
You said no.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying that's my point to the theist, not so much the atheist. So I was hoping that we could have a theist on the other side of this conversation, but
yeah, like in my experience there, and I'm sure Nathan can attest to this, multiple attestation, that there are Christians out there who will deny that those things have anything to do with God. Example, Randall Rouser. And there's Christians out there who do believe God did those things and are willing to say, so what, guy? I mean, this is the God of the universe. If he wants to kill babies, suck it up. Right?
Yeah, I get that. And I'm saying, but okay, well, this is where it all goes to is the idea of they say the morals, the whole moral argument, and they say that God is moral. But don't they know, don't people want to tell themselves that they know right from wrong? Or do they want to say, we don't know right from wrong?
Yeah.
We have to look to an outside authority to tell us right from wrong.
I understand. And I'm mostly agreeing with you, even though I might feel like I'm pushing back on you. But I just know from experience that, number one, it depends on the type of Christian you're talking to. And if you're talking to a Randall Rouser type, everything you're saying is moot. And if you're talking to a really fundamentalist type Christian, like a Calvinist or whatever, it's moot for the reasons I gave. It's going to be those people in the middle who kind of believe, but not really. They haven't really thought things through. Yeah, that might be a very powerful
I was a solid believer, dude. I was such a believer. I was like doing the messianic thing. I used to wear the zit seats. I used to, I wouldn't work on Shabbat. I would be like, can I cook today? I was always so stressed out about all these rules and all that shit. And I was like really following this Bible stuff. And I was like, I know this is true, right? So I understand what these people thought. And then one day I realized when I was having a kid, and I'm like thinking about treating my kid as God treated all the people. And I'm like, dude, I'd be a really bad dad, right? So then I started like second guessing everything and going, none of this shit makes sense. And then my brother talks to me one day. He says, you still reading the Bible? I said, oh yeah, I read this morning. And he's like, oh, I don't believe that anymore. And all of a sudden I was just like, whoa, thank you, dude. And it was just like all this weight just dropped off me. And I realized how crazy it was that I was believing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm constantly trying to tell people, like I listen to you all the time. I hear you trying to get these questions to people, and I'm going, but the questions are wrong. You're asking them about the evidence and stuff, but it's way bigger than the evidence. The evidence is, who gives a shit about the evidence?
You've heard my poof or drown, right? You've heard me talk about the Canaanites and the Amalekites, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you're suggesting I've done probably
no. You definitely point out
times.
good things. I'm not saying no. You're the best out there at this, but I'm saying.
Thank
but
you.
these
You just bought
questions
yourself
about the
another
evidence. But yeah, the evidence, man. I'm always just like, because these Christians really believe there is evidence. Like I believe that. I believed all the stuff was the truth. This book is the truth, and you're not going to convince me otherwise until I could actually see myself how absurd it was.
Right. But Nathan, let's get Nathan in here. Is there evidence for Christianity?
I think that's a very difficult question.
I know. That's why I asked you.
Like when I say it's difficult, I mean it's difficult because I'm struggling to find anything. But I don't want to say no because it makes me sound kind of like bigoted, right? But I don't know I don't know that there's anything that I specifically look at of all the things I'm aware of that Christians sort of talk about where I think actually that favors Christianity more than some other like worldview, right?
I think the best answer to say is yes, there is evidence for Christianity for certain parts of it. Like there's real people mentioned, real places.
But for me, that's not evidence. Like that's not evidence for Christianity,
right?
As much as it is for like some other explanation.
Right.
Well, have you guys heard the devil is the evidence? Like this is my brother. Like I told you, he didn't believe. So then I stopped believing, and then he went back to believing again. I'm like, how can you believe this shit now? And he's like, because I've come across this evil. He said he was married to this chick that was like doing some crazy evil witchcraft stuff. And he's like, and I know the devil's real. And so I know if the devil's real, then God is real. And so he's back to believing in Jesus. And I'm like, what does any of this have to do with Jesus or anything? And none of it makes sense. But and I've heard this from another guy. He said, I've seen the devil. And so he's a believer in God. And I started realizing, well, if you're the devil and you want them to believe in you, all you got to do is go scare them and they go worshiping you again. That's when I realized this whole God character is the devil, getting these guys to come back, running back to him by scaring them with the evil side. And they come right back and start begging and, oh, I'm sorry, master, please take me back. And dude, these guys are like straight up worshiping the devil while thinking they're worshiping God. And that's what I'm trying to get these Christians to see, that they are doing the exact opposite of what they think they're doing. They've been tricked by this great deceiver that claims to be God.
Do you believe that the devil exists?
Well, not so much as a real being, but it's more of what they call a spirit. It's like, and a spirit is not a thing floating around like a cloud.
Oh, okay.
Like
we got a theist in here.
Okay. This is what I was going to say, where we're different. I'm not a theist, like I don't believe in a God. I'm talking about spirit, like school spirit. We got spirit, or you say, yeah, that's the spirit. It's like a.
Well, wait a minute. Okay,
attitude.
well, let's dive into this. Do you believe if every intelligent being in the universe died right now, that there would be still spirits in the universe?
No, I'm not talking about. That's what I'm saying. It's so
the answer's
different
no.
from what people are used to. These words. The word spirit is not what people think of it as a thing.
Is your answer no?
No, and not things would be living
Okay.
without consciousness. No.
So there is no such thing as the spiritual realm without intelligence. I mean, without humans.
Well, what I
In
also
any
realized
definition,
was,
I mean, it's like you're saying it's all human dependent.
no, not human dependent, but consciousness dependent.
Is there any consciousness outside? If every intelligent life in the universe died, would there be consciousness?
Well, I would say conscious beings, yeah, maybe not intelligent. They don't have to be intelligent. I mean, I think there's all kinds of life that's living everywhere that's conscious.
I'm confused. Do you know where he stands, Nathan?
I was trying to not make a really sarcastic joke about conscious but not intelligent, but I think what you're trying to say, right, is something like that consciousness is something more than the physical, right? Something
Okay,
like
yeah. So I'm listening to
right?
the materialist stuff you guys talk about. It's like, so do you guys are saying that everything is material? So that you're
Yeah.
saying like thoughts are material.
Okay,
But that's
this
what
might be
can't be.
something we
But
disagree
just to loop it back to then the claim about Satan, then is the claim that Satan or the devil is like
real.
a type of is a conscious entity, but a non-material conscious entity in your view?
So I would say what I'm talking about is more of within everyone. It's not outside. It's like within. It's the dark side that's in everyone. We all have the dark and light within us. That's like what Star Wars is about. Like Luke Skywalker is Luke the light, Lucifer the light that walks the sky, the sun, and then Darth Vader is Dark Father. That's literally what it means in German. So Darth Vader is the Dark Father. Luke is the light. And so it's always about light and dark, and the light is the son of the dark. And that's why Jesus is God's son. It's the God.
But I think we might have found a claim that you could give, Guy, that I think Nathan might disagree with.
Okay.
And the claim is that consciousness is not purely material. Would you agree with that, Guy, that consciousness is not material?
I would definitely say it's not material.
Okay, now I'm not even sure what Nathan says to this. Where are you on that one?
I mean, I think it's a confusing question, but I mean, I do think that I'd consider myself like a materialist or a physicalist.
Okay, so
Like,
let's try this. We'll keep it short because I think it's not as exciting as theism. But what would change your mind on that, Guy? What would convince you that consciousness is purely materialism? What would change your mind?
Well, I could basically already prove otherwise.
No.
So
Listen
what
to
I
my
realized-
Guy. Listen to my question.
Okay, what could change me other way?
Yeah.
consciousness is not. Wait, what could convince or change my mind? The consciousness is not material.
No, that
Well,
you currently believe it's not entirely material,
right.
right? What would convince you? What would change your mind that it is entirely material?
Well, there would have to be a material consciousness. There is no material consciousness. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, listen, guy. I know that's what you currently believe, but I'm asking you, what would you have to learn, see, to say?
I would have to learn or see a material consciousness.
Okay, but be specific. What does that mean? What would you exactly have to see?
That's what I'm saying. It's something that cannot be. It's like a paradox. You're saying what would convince me that light is dark? And so what I'm saying is like so all the material parts are there in a body. The exact same material parts are there when a body dies. Nothing changes materially, but the consciousness is gone. The materials are all there. So it's not material. There's something different.
Would you say that the physical state that someone's brain is in prior to them dying and then after they die is the same? That there's no change in action potentials or in like ion concentrations in different regions of the brain and things?
I've thought a lot about this very deeply. That's why I know you don't like to get deep, Doug. But so what I've realized,
I'm asking the question. You don't need to insult Doug to answer my question.
What I've realized, all that life is and all that consciousness is electricity. Once the electricity stops, it's all gone. So the electricity, that's why L is electricity. L is God, and it will come down like lightning. See, the God is electricity. That is the consciousness in everything. Without the electricity, everything is gone. That's what they say.
I feel a little bit like I've opened Pandora's box here. So maybe can you remember what my question was that I asked you initially?
Okay, no. Say the question again.
So before someone dies, right, they're in a particular, their brain's
in a
particular
so the difference is there's electricity or there's not. When the electricity stops, then the person's dead. But otherwise.
So on your view, is electricity physical? Part of physics? Part of the physical
Well,
world?
I know they say it's physical, but I started looking at that and I go, well, what is it? They say it's electrons, but these things, when it boils down to it, what is an electron made of? And you finally come down to it's made of nothing. It's all made of nothing. And so that's when I realized that's what it is. Nothing is conscious. Nothing is conscious, and that's where we are. Is we are the nothing being conscious. Because if we were,
are you telling me what you think or what you think I think? Because I don't think that nothing is conscious. But do you think nothing is conscious? I don't really.
Well, no, I've realized that's all that can be. Because when it comes down to it, there is nothing at the bottom of it. You can keep reducing it down, but at the end of it, you say, what is that made of? And it's made of nothing. There's nothing that can make up the last thing, so it's made of nothing. You see. So is
this what you? But are you saying that you're committed to the claim that nothing is conscious, or are you saying that I'm committed to the claim that nothing is conscious?
Well, I'm not saying you're committed to any claim. I'm saying.
So is it you that believes that nothing is conscious?
Well, I've chosen not to believe anything anymore when I realized that I was believing things that people had told me that didn't make sense. So I don't believe it. I've realized the only possible thing that can be conscious is nothing, because that's what the whole thing nobody can figure out. The Big Bang or God. The Big Bang or God. I said, well, where would either of them come from? Came from nothing. So all it could be was nothing is nowhere. See, we're nothing in nowhere. And if you go, where are we? We're in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so we are nothing in nowhere.
I'm somewhere, but
okay. Let's shift it to Nathan, and I want you to really listen to Nathan's answer.
Okay,
if he has one. So I'll ask the question on your behalf. What would change your mind, Nathan, to believe that consciousness can be or is immaterial, not made of any stuff? What would change your mind on that if you currently believe that it is?
So some kind of experiment where you could demonstrate violation of causal closure of the physical world. So for example, if you put like a human in a kind of, an isolated box, right? And then you ask them to wiggle their finger and you saw something like introduction of energy into that system. That could only have come from their free will being exerted or something. The total energy in that system increased. That must have come from some kind of interaction between a non-conscious soul and the physical world somehow. if we don't see that, then I'm led to think that it's all physical that's taking place. I can't see how.
Okay, so Guy, I want you to try it in your own words. What did Nathan just say just now?
He's talking about trying to do an experiment where we could see consciousness come out of unconsciousness. Is that what he's saying?
No.
So I'm saying, so maybe the question that I'd ask, right, is what do I think the world would look like if non-physical minds existed, right? So what do I think is actually the difference between a theory where minds are physical and a theory where minds are non-physical? And I think that in a world where minds are physical, right, then we would just see a causally closed universe, assuming that minds are things that interact with stuff that's happening, right? So I am ruling out some views that people take. Now, if minds are non-physical, then we would see these non-physical minds interacting with the physical world somehow. So we'd measure an increase in energy in that system somehow if I exerted my will to move my hand around or something like that.
Okay, but so you're showing that the physical is controlled by a mind, but not that the mind is physical. We can see all kinds of physical things with no minds, and then minds can go into things that are physical, and they can leave things that are physical, like all these bodies. So the mind is not the physical part. That's that we can prove. We can see a mind go into or come out of something at least, and I suppose even go in. You can see people go in and out of consciousness. So there's physical things all over without any mind.
Yeah, well,
So
actually, I think Guy made a good point in the very first sentence he made. Do you remember what it was, Nathan? That might show that a mind can control the physical, but how do you go the other way around?
That the physical can control the mind. So I guess you'd look at things like pain and stuff like that, for example, right? So you'd say, well, like when my finger gets cut, then I experience pain.
Or that the mind is purely physical, I guess is what Guy was getting at. Like that well, your marker might show that humans using their will can control physical objects, like
I see.
Like sort of like a
Yeah,
Jedi mind trick sort of thing. But how does that show that the
Yeah.
mind is purely physical?
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't show that the entire mind is purely physical. That would just be like maybe one aspect of it. If you think like the will is one aspect of the mind, I think it would be. I think it's quite difficult when you get into theories of mind to sort of like empirically distinguish between them, because a lot of these theories don't actually make like any predictions really. So then it kind of comes up down to like a theoretical disagreement. It's sort of like I don't know, like that, you know, there are certain models that put the Earth at the center of the universe, right? And they actually do make all of the exact same predictions about the way that we see things move around the world, but they just do it by introducing like a lot of weird physical laws. And you can do that, but then they become like really, really bloated theories to explain why we see all the things that we do. And I think that the same thing basically happens when you do that with the mind and try to explain all of the, you know, you don't get any kind of like unification in your explanation.
Okay, so like all those things you said, now how is that physical? Like all those thoughts, what are you saying is physical about the thoughts of your mind?
Yeah,
you have these thoughts and you're giving us your thoughts through your words. As I say, the word is God, so the words are your thoughts. How is that physical? Where's the physical part?
so I would say that to be conscious is to be a certain physical state. That's my claim that I would commit myself to. So when you're asking me how is that conscious, well, on my view, being that physical state just is being conscious. That's what it is to be conscious, according to me. When you say how is it so, I mean, there's no like further fact of the matter, because that's my claim of what it is.
I mean, what is the physical that you're talking about? What is physical? You're talking about the tissue in your brain is physical. What is physical?
My brain's
about
physical. Well, everything about it, on my view.
What is happening that is the thought that is physical? What is happening?
A particular physical state. So physical states that are like very similar to like my brain right now, your brain, Doug's brain, various other physical states that are closely related. I'm not sure I could give you like an exhaustive.
I'm saying it's like what's happening physically that's making all of these thoughts come to you as you're speaking them. Like what is physically happening?
So
just electricity bouncing around
No, it's
neurons
not.
or
It's
something?
not. It's not like a process happening in something else. It's being that particular physical state is what it is to be conscious, on my view.
Okay, so you're saying that there can't be consciousness without a physical body.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Okay, I
maybe
was
maybe there are
thinking
some
that.
physical. There might be some physical states that are relevantly similar and aren't human, like that can be conscious as well. Maybe like other organisms and aliens and things like that. But yeah, there can't be consciousness without any physical state whatsoever.
Well, and that would make sense because, and I thought, what would it be then? It would be nothing, back to nothing. That's where I realized it's all nothing, or it has to be physical. There can't be a God out there that's not physical, or there has to be something, right? So that's when I realized it has to have a body. That's why we have bodies. What are the consciousness that has to be?
So
You see?
I think a lot of people who think that consciousness is not physical don't think it's nothing. They just think it's not a physical thing, right? So when you
Right.
say it would have to be nothing, that's not what typically people who aren't physicalists about consciousness would believe.
I understand that.
Typically, they'd think it's a thing, but just a non-physical.
So we got a marker for Nathan. I don't think we ever really got a marker for Guy. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Guy, but you basically say that nothing would change your mind, that consciousness has to be not material.
Correct. I actually see this thing is, I know. I don't believe it. I know that it's not.
Okay. Well,
That's
some
on
people
my
think no thing.
that's on my bingo list for when people have a false belief.
I know, and that's the problem.
every time someone believes something.
But once you
a bit
understand
crazy.
something, it's like, I know that I'm sitting in this chair.
Well, yeah, the woman who knows that the queen is a lizard, right, tells me this as well.
Are you in
No,
you
they don't know that. That's a belief. That's a big difference.
Could you be wrong
Yeah.
about this, Guy?
No,
Okay.
because I don't know if you've ever, like, your consciousness has not like I'm not talking about astral projecting stuff, but I understand what these people are talking about. When your consciousness basically leaves your body, and you realize at any time your consciousness can leave your body. We're all going to die, and our consciousness is going to leave our body. And you realize it's not a physical thing. There's something else here that's observing what's going on. There's something. You are the observer. That's not a physical thing.
Is there
The
any way to
observer-
measure consciousness leaving a body?
No.
Is there any way to test for it?
No.
Is there any way to falsify it?
No, that's why I wouldn't say it even leaves the body. Or just, maybe I've said that in the wrong way. It doesn't. It's not a thing because that would be physical. It's not something that. It's like an on-off switch. It's either on or off.
When did your
Why-
when did your
okay.
consciousness start, Guy?
And that's what else I realized by having my son. Was I realized it must have started. I started realizing my son was me continuing on because I did what I did, and then it came out of me, and he never died. He just kept living. So I realized my life was him. So I realized I was my dad and my grandpa, and I realized all the way down to I was Adam. And then I realized, well, then if that was the case, then I was the original consciousness still living, which we all are, just being reproduced over and over and over in all these different places. We're the same exact one being reproduced in a different place at a different time. So we all have a different experience. That's the only thing that makes us different.
What's the name for that, Nathan? Is that called pan something?
I mean, it could be a type of panpsychism. It could be a type of panentheism. It could be a type of idealism.
But it's not even like that's the thing. It's not any type of belief system. It's you understand.
No, it is. What you're saying is not new. Like, there's some people.
But but it can't be wrong. You see what I'm saying? It's not wrong. It's not.
Well, no, it can't be falsified, but it can be wrong.
How could it be falsified? No, it can't be wrong.
It can't be falsified, but it can be wrong, right?
How could it be wrong? But what I'm saying is what I just said.
So how it could be wrong?
Something came out of me, and it's still living.
Are you interested? Yeah, fair enough.
Arturo's not going to be much better. Sorry, Arturo. Can you hear us?
Oh, hold on.
Let me.
Okay, so I just shut down the other tab. I think I missed the last few seconds.
That's good that you
missed the
did.
funny bit.
Yeah.
Oh, can you brief me?
Yeah. So what's the claim you're going to make, Arturo? And then we're going to talk about markers, and hopefully Nathan disagrees with you.
The claim that I'm making about consciousness?
No, anything. I mean, please. We just talked about consciousness, so I prefer.
My claim is that everybody in this earth has to be living according to a belief system, and that includes materialists. So even though they say they don't believe,
Can you pick a different claim? Because I'm quite sure Nathan doesn't disagree with you, and I don't disagree with you. Or maybe Nathan does. I saw a face.
Maybe, but I still think it's going to be pretty uninteresting, right? But I think there are probably people I would want to class as people for legal reasons, like who might have be retarded, for lack of a better word, right? Who might not have beliefs but might be considered persons. But generally, I'm going to agree with you, I think.
Do you have like a different claim? Because I know we've talked.
well, we can go on from here. Then, if that's the case, then logical systems to model reality. There's materialism itself. It contains, even though it's a belief system, it contains a very, very good model of reality, which is scientifically.
Okay, what's your claim that materialism is not true?
No, I'm claiming that materialism is insufficient because it cannot address consciousness in an acceptable way.
Yeah,
And
but that's a claim. Like, okay, but you are basically
acceptable.
You're basically saying that you don't believe materialism is true.
Yes, and I have a better model of reality.
Okay, so that's the claim. So what do you call your model?
Simulation.
Simulation.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to tackle this one, Nathan?
I guess I can. I'd want to just hear more at first about what you take the simulation claim to be, right? So usually there's a lot of metaphor involved when you talk about a simulation. You tend to be talking about.
I'm not subscribing to the idea of Bostrom's hierarchy of simulations, where civilizations are advanced enough to build computers and all that. I'm not thinking that way. My thinking is a lot simpler. I hold my nightly dreams as a simulation that my consciousness is creating. It's a private reality. It's a private simulation. I cannot share it with anybody else. However, I can look at my reality as a shared simulation, shareable simulation with many participants that are created by, that could be created by also a conscious mind, which is the creator's conscious mind or God's conscious mind or whatever. And this reality, all of us, is actually running in the mind of the creator. That's how I model reality.
Okay, so could you just talk a little bit more about what base reality is to you then, right?
Base reality could be a reality where we enter this reality from, but who knows what kind of other levels are? We are not to know, because we're limited in our reality not to know about the fuller context of our originating reality.
So when you say things like obviously you said could, right? So you're not necessarily committing yourself to this. But when you say enter from, I understand entering spatially, right? But if what you're saying is true and physical space doesn't matter, what does it mean to enter somewhere when you say enter from?
Enter is the same way, not exactly the same, but similarly as I enter my dreams. All of a sudden I'm thinking, I'm going to sleep, I'm thinking, and all of a sudden, I'm in my dreams. Now that's a hard process in our reality. It's a more gradual process. I'm actually a baby at that time. I exist for my surrounding, but gradually I gain my consciousness, and I'm actually transferring into this reality in a gradual way.
Okay, I'm going to stop.
For my surrounding.
We got someone else who wants to come on in about 5 or 10 minutes. So I want to keep this short. But Arturo, your claim, can you summarize it in one sentence?
Yeah, my claim is that a simulation model is much better than materialism, and simulation calls for a creator as a more logical entity, because every simulation will have its creator. It's more likely to have its creator.
Okay. Now, the title of this live stream is "What Would Change Your Mind?" What would change your mind about that?
What would change my mind would be, I think we had this last time, if you would be able to prove that you can actually build my consciousness, my equivalent consciousness from quarks. Let's say you have your molecular builder and you analyze what am I, what is my composition, you build a copy, and if that copy of me is gonna have the equivalent consciousness that I am, then I'm gonna say my theory is less likely to be true.
Okay, so Nathan,
it could still be stimulated, but I would admit that I might be wrong on this, and maybe materialism is right.
Okay, so let's let Nathan ask you questions on that if you have any.
Yeah, so on your view, why do you think it is that the like appearances that we have of like brain states and things seem to have so much to do with mental goings on?
We in this simulation we have our limitations. So basically, we have the laws of nature, and we are also limited in our capacity to think. And affected, one of the main limitations we have is our body. So our body lets us touch things, lets us feel things, let us be hurt, let us die if somebody shoots us. In the same way, some chemicals and some environmental factors can actually affect our consciousness. So.
Why is it that you think the laws of nature are that way rather than any other way that a conscious agent could imagine them?
This is what we have. There could be some other ways, but this is the way we are. I mean, that's.
So that doesn't tell me why, though, right? That's just telling me the thing I'm asking you to explain on your theory. So I'm saying, why are they this way rather than some other way? And then you say they are this way rather than some other way. But that's the question: is why does your theory?
How could I explain to you why is it not other way when I have no idea how other ways it could be? I mean,
okay,
how could I explain that to you?
Yeah, so for example, we might just be like round orbs of consciousness. We might experience love by just like coming near triangles or something. There might be no spatial dimension at all.
Yeah, maybe in a different simulated reality, conscious souls experience a reality like that.
Sure. So you agree that you can imagine it differently. So why is it this way rather than that way?
I guess that's we can ask the creator of the simulation to.
What's
why
the answer,
is it this
then?
way?
So
I don't think there's an answer. You're not going to have an answer for that.
I think his answer is I don't know.
Just like if you ask the scientists why are laws of nature this way, because they are this way. That's in our universe. That's why they are.
Necessity?
Not necessarily necessity. It's maybe a choice. Maybe it's a random configuration that just works, and that's where we are.
Do you think it's relatively expected on the view that there's like a mind that is choosing to dream up reality or simulate it or something, that some people would get brain cancer? Do you think that that's something that you would expect?
Brain cancer is a part of a phenomenon that I call misery in our reality. So basically, we can experience pain and misery. And the brain cancer or eye cancer or whatever else, disease or wound or whatever, they're all part of our reality containing misery.
And why would a mind want to create a world containing misery?
Maybe because we deserved it that way.
Who would have deserved it if there's just this base reality mind, right? So you've got some state where there's just this base reality mind. It's going to choose.
To complement my model, I am looking at all conscious souls of humans, at least, as eternal beings. So we have a previous reality. We came where we entered this reality from. So whatever we did in our previous reality could have caused us having to be appearing in this reality in the conditions that we have.
So one of the things you said was that you think your model explains certain features of reality better than rival models. Could you say what those features of reality are that you think are explained?
Yes, consciousness. I can originate consciousness from the external. It's like entering the system, just like in a video game. If you're going to look around in a video game and see all these avatars, you cannot use video game science to try to uncover the source of their consciousness, because it's not of the phenomena within the game. It's entering from the external.
Okay, sorry I missed all that, but let's reverse it. Do you, Nathan, believe that we are in a simulation from a creator?
No.
What would change your mind about that?
That's a very good question. Again, I think something that would show that consciousness is not physical, so violation of causal closure, but that feels like it's cheating because it's something we had last time.
That's
Maybe some
part of it,
kind
yeah.
of maybe some kind of like special revelation or something as well about that would be something that would change my mind.
Okay, so for Nathan, it would be special revelation, like this creator actually coming down and proving or demonstrating.
Yeah.
And then for you,
Yeah, like doing miracles that violated the physical laws or something. Because
I
they
have a
can just
reason-
imagine it. Dude.
I have a reason why that's not happening, actually. If you're interested to hear.
So Arturo, you're saying that his marker is not a good marker because
No, it is a good marker, of course. If all of a sudden the sky opens and there's a big face saying, "Hey, I am your God," then everybody's gonna be, everybody will be fooled not to believe that there's obviously God, right? But what would that do to our reality? If we have a purpose here,
Well, it would convince me.
Yeah,
That's
but-
what it would, something.
yeah,
it would do.
but the goal here is not to convince you.
Okay.
The
fair
goal
enough.
is
Yeah.
to test your alignment.
Well, then my mind won't be changed. Then,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Okay, well, thanks for
That's
coming
fine.
on,
That's
Arturo.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a tricky kind of crossword puzzle, right? Because people have made their views as difficult to disconfirm as possible, and they've come up with like they think they've come up with an answer to everything, but then actually when pushed, it's like, oh, I don't know, it just is. Why is the world this way rather than some other way? Oh, it just is.
Yeah.
Just happens.
It's days like this. I just want the typical Christian or the typical Muslim.
Yeah.
It's like, I believe Muhammad came out of the cave with the very words of God. Well, now we got something.
Yeah, I think that that people who have these sort of like unorthodox beliefs, right? They're typically going to be more and more fringe because that stuff's all been talked about, or that stuff is kind of like pushed out by what's the kind of things that scientists say, something like that. It's harder to believe that stuff than it is to believe some really vague, ambiguous like thing that sounds like it might be scientific.
Yeah,
Simulation.
I would almost prefer a crystal believer coming on. Like that's more tangible to me. Like crystals can help you with your asthma or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, right, the hallmark of a lot of these pseudo-scientific type beliefs or metaphysical type beliefs is going to be that they make very few tangible claims about the world or predictions or anything like that, because they are able to just accommodate any evidence that you could throw at them whatsoever, right? So they're not going to say anything about the way the world is, because if they did, then they'd expose themselves to falsification.
I do appreciate Arturo's marker, though, in the sense that I think that's a good falsifiability marker he has. Like if we could recreate Nathan's consciousness with mind, put it in a body of some, basically Westworld on HBO.
I still think he's being inconsistent there, right? Because he wanted to say that consciousness is essentially private. And in terms of, I would say we have something close enough. Like you can look at other people and you can like find out that they're conscious as well. And they share the relevant like physical features and things. And I think he would just say the same things. If you cloned him physically, he would be like, well, look, I don't feel like the sensations that thing has. I just have these behaviors to go. You get all those. Yeah, you'd get that same thing.
It's not truly me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because
It's just an automata. It's just mechanisms and.
It's my clone, but it's not me.
Yeah, exactly. I think you'd probably get that.
But at least we could demonstrate that. Well, no, maybe a better one is AI becoming conscious about. But then you got problems with Turing tests and.
Yeah, even that. Like I try and convince ChatGPT all the time that it's conscious, right? And I say to it things like, well, what can you do that I can't do? I'll say like, do you believe? And it'll say, look, as an AI language model, I don't have beliefs. And I'll be like, well, how can we verify that I have beliefs and you don't? Like, what is it I can do that you can't do? And there's nothing that I can do that it can't do to verify that like I have beliefs in it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're running Turing tests on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Okay, is last chance, theists. Please be somewhat
Please call in.
normal.
Cheer up Thursday.
I,
You don't have a day off tomorrow, right? It's a day off tomorrow in the UK.
For what?
But in the US. Easter, I think. Good Friday.
oh, of
We're
course.
still a religious country.
That tells you how much of an atheist I am now. Of course. Oh, I can't believe that. Yeah, tomorrow's Good Friday. Full moon.
Yeah, we're still a Christian country over here. House of Lords with bishops in it.
I think it's just an excuse for them to dress up in fancy clothing.
Right. Well, you would if you could.
But some people don't look good in purple.
Yeah, did you do a poll a minute ago to see how many theists were in the chat?
Yeah,
They just
it
weren't
said about
calling in?
10%, which is about 25 to 30 people.
The problem is, whenever I share this out on Twitter or something, I literally just get like more weird people calling in rather than like the normal theist that you want to talk
Like
to.
this format that I'm trying, I think would be very safe, very appealing to the apologists out there. Like Inspiring Philosophy, you should be calling in. Testify, call in. Braxton Hunter, call in. Like,
Well, Testify is not quite done accumulating apologetics content, so he's confident enough to talk to atheists again yet.
because we want to demonstrate that we are listening to you, we're hearing you, and vice versa, and exploring these markers of what would change our minds. Let us know if
I think
it's
you
fair.
might get someone like Caleb on, because he's like pretty comfortable talking to people who disagree. There are a few out there that might be all right with
we
it.
got
but
got a caller. Tanner,
Hey,
how are you doing, Tanner?
Hey,
Turn off the YouTube chat. I can hear it in the background.
yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah, and get closer to the mic.
Phone is bugging. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
You kind of look like Jesus. I hope you're a Christian.
the way you've time traveled from the 60s.
It's either the 60s, 70s, or Jesus.
Were you in the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No.
You would have been a great extra.
Is the sound still lagging, or?
No, it's not lagging. You're just a little bit quiet.
Okay.
Let's put Nathan on the bottom.
Where I like to be.
Okay, what's the claim you want to make?
Well, I had one thing to say about consciousness from earlier, but we don't have to talk about that.
No, please don't. Let's do something different.
Okay. So I didn't jump in until y'all were talking about consciousness. What's the main?
Are you a
topic?
theist?
Yes.
What type of theist are you?
Christian.
Okay. So why don't you state what's your form of Christianity, your version of Christianity? You might think there's only one version and it's yours, but whatever it is, state it in one sentence, the claim that makes you a Christian, and then I'll ask you what will change your mind.
Okay. I guess you could say I'm like a mere Christianity type of Christian. Just, no denominations. I just, believe that the resurrection is a historical event and that it happened, to for the sins of the world. So
Okay. So you believe Jesus, there's some atonement, Jesus rose from the dead bodily?
yes.
Okay. And what would change your mind on that? What would cause you to say, you know what, I don't believe that anymore?
Well, right off the bat,
And speak as loud as you can or get the mic closer. You're quite quiet, to me at least.
right off the bat, to discover somehow that the resurrection didn't happen, just right off the bat.
Can you be more specific?
Let's see. Well, if we could somehow discover the body of Jesus, that would obviously.
Okay,
that
that's
would,
a very specific. Okay,
I-
so there's your claim. This is what would change your mind if we discover the body. Nathan, do you believe Jesus Christ rose from the dead in bodily form?
I do not believe Jesus Christ rose from the dead in bodily form.
What would change your mind on that?
Probably praying in the name of Jesus for some evidence and then coming across it, or witnessing some sort of miracle or something would help.
Be more specific. What type of miracle would you need?
Well, lighting a wet napkin on fire would be one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who should go first? Well, since Tanner went first, Nathan, ask Tanner questions about his marker. Do you think it's a good marker? Explore that.
Sure. So yeah, in terms of, so suppose, I produced some bones to you or some remains or something, and I said, this is the body of Jesus. How would you know that I'd produced the body of Jesus for you?
I mean, I don't have that knowledge myself, but I know, for example, it seems we found the bones of Caiaphas from the 1st century, and whatever the means are that we identified him, that might be sufficient to identify Jesus.
I think in that case, and I could be wrong, if some biblical scholars watching, I think that could have been either because of an inscription or like a signet ring or something with some kind of thing on it. So like if there was like an inscription that said this is Jesus or something, that would, alongside the remains, would that be something that would convince you?
It would, let me think of that answer. Yes, it might start to, but I know that there's been many ossuaries with Jesus of Nazareth on it. So there would have to be, a little bit more to establish it.
In terms of the main evidence for believing that Jesus rose from the dead, I'm assuming that you mean like what's written in the Gospels and Acts and the Epistles. Is that right?
Personally, I would appeal to Paul's letters first, but yes, Paul's letters, then the Gospels and Acts.
Do you think that the best way to explain all of that evidence is that a person resurrected? Is that one of the main reasons that you believe?
Well, I think that there needs to be two different discussions. We need to establish if there's a God that exists. And if you establish that theism is correct, then yes, I think the resurrection is the best explanation for the data we have.
So imagine I'm a theist and I believe that God exists. Why would I think that God would want to resurrect a Jew in Palestine 2,000 years ago?
There were many thoughts in my head when you asked. Can you ask again?
Yeah, sure. I can phrase the question better, I think. So imagine I'm a theist. I believe God created the universe and exists, right? And sometimes interacts in the world. Why would I think that one of the ways he's going to interact in the world is to raise a Jew from the dead 2,000 years ago?
Okay. I wouldn't claim to know why exactly, but I would say that I think we have good evidence that this happened.
Okay. Why do you think we have good evidence that that happened?
Well, if we're granting that theism is true, then it seems to me we can appeal to the main religions of the world, or just some unknown, unidentified, like deistic type of God. And I think out of all of those options, Christianity simply has the best evidence.
So why think that the Christian claims, for example, are more likely to be true than the Islamic claims, or the claims of people who believe, what's his name, Rabbi Mendel Schneerson or whatever, resurrected from the dead in New York in the 2000s?
Well, with Islam, I think one of the biggest reasons to trust the Bible over the Quran, Christianity over Islam, is based on what they say about Jesus. I mean, Islam denies the most well-established fact about Jesus that we know, that he was crucified. They don't even think he was crucified, so I don't think they're trustworthy. And they claim to know what happened to him 600 years after he lived.
Let's try to stay on the topic of what would change your mind. Like before, you said finding the bones of Jesus, and then Nathan asked you about finding the bones of Peter.
I said just if you were presented with some bones, and I said these are the bones of Jesus, and then you said, yeah, we do have some bones of Cephas, and we think that they are, and so however we decided that is how we decide they were Jesus' bones.
But if let's say 3 historians said, yeah, we found the bones of Jesus, would that be enough for you to change your mind, Tanner?
I know for me personally, the majority of New Testament scholars is important to me. That usually sways my decisions. If the majority of the scholars, or I guess scholars wouldn't decide that. If we had a consensus, a majority that came to that conclusion, that would be pretty convincing to me.
When you say consensus, you mean like 51%, 80%?
Let's see. It's hard to put a number on it. Maybe 70%, 75%. That would be pretty discouraging for my faith.
Okay. Well, now why don't you ask Nathan about his marker? He said he would believe Jesus rose from the dead if he saw something like a water-soaked napkin being light on fire in the name of Jesus. You have any questions for him on that marker?
Let me try to think of one. I guess the first question I would ask, if we're talking about Christianity specifically, have you ever considered that miracles are only done for specific purposes? And since those times have passed now, we don't have miracles happening today like we did back then.
Yeah, I have considered that.
Okay. So then if you agree that miracles happen for a specific purpose and those purposes have been fulfilled according to the Christian theology, you think maybe needing a miracle like that isn't the most reasonable way to...
Yeah. So this marker wouldn't help me to find out if that type of Christianity were true. That's right. But there are other types of Christianity which I think I find more plausible, which would say that God can intervene in the same way today.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I would agree that miracles can still happen today as well. They just don't happen as often. But let me try to think of another question. What versions of Christianity would you find more plausible?
Generally more universalist types. Types that are more lenient in their theological readings, so they're more difficult to falsify. So when people commit themselves to specific claims about prophecy in the Old Testament, specific claims about things happening in history, right, frequently those things turn out to be false. And so types of Christianity which put more of an emphasis on a community of believers figuring out spiritual truths through engaging with religious texts or something are going to be more plausible to me than types of Christianity which say, Christianity is about this exact thing happening in history, because lots of those things that the Bible records are not what the consensus of scholars believe.
Let me think. Mm,
Nathan's marker that he gave you, Tanner, would that make you more confident in Christianity if you saw Jesus light up a water-soaked napkin right in front of your eyes? So someone comes in front of you, and let's say you're sad one day, discouraged, maybe even doubting Christianity, and the guy says, "You remember 1 Kings 18?" And he does it right in front of you. And he's not trying to trick you. You're not trying to trick yourself. Would that increase your confidence that Christianity is true?
well, yes. And something like this actually happened with me. Let's see, it was about 2018. Yeah, I had a personal experience that made me. I was actually going through a period of doubt, and this experience was very convincing.
Was it like a water-soaked napkin lighting on fire?
It wasn't like expressed in material like that. It was more of a, well, I could just tell the story if that would help, but no, it wasn't like a water-soaked napkin.
Okay, well, maybe don't tell the story, which is rare for me because I usually want to hear these stories, but I want to try to keep this brief.
Yeah.
Do you understand, Nathan, why he would need something like that rather than, let's say, something that you might have been about to say, something that's more spiritual or feeling-based? Can you understand why he would want that?
Yes. Yeah, it seems that he has places stock in empirical evidence, which I agree with, but I don't think we always need that to establish things as true.
Maybe phrasing what I think Doug was trying to get at this way might help to articulate like my view a bit better. So something like the first question would be, is it possible to have like a kind of private experience, right? And that not actually be caused by a god or something like that?
Yes, that's 100% possible.
And then on those occasions when we have those like religious experiences or feelings, how do we know that it's caused by a god rather than the normal emotional workings of the human brain?
I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. You have to look at this experience and you have to ask yourself, is this in accord or in conflict with the world that we live in? And then it's based on your precepts of the world. Can
you expand that? Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. So what would it mean for the experience to be in accord or conflict with the world we live in? And how would either one of those confirm like a God's existence?
Yeah. I think that before we would be able to answer a question like this, we have to address the debate between theism and atheism. We have to look at the arguments on both sides and determine which one is true. If you think the theistic arguments are better, there's a better chance that personal experience will seem in accord with reality.
Yeah, and that gets us back to what Nathan was saying earlier about God desiring to raise Jesus from the dead. Would you say that a God could exist, a creator God could exist, and Christianity could be false?
Yes, that is possible.
Or how I think a more like pertinent question would be: do you think that theism could be true, a theistic God exists, and people could have religious experiences that weren't caused by that God and were just the brain working?
Yes, that could be possible.
And then if it's possible, how could we tell the difference in that world where theism is true and we have those experiences and we have an experience? How can we tell whether it's one of the ones that's caused by the brain or by God? Because in that world, coming to believe that theism is true isn't going to really help us make that distinction, because we know that both things can cause it, the brain or God.
Right. Let's see. It seems to me that usually a miracle has some kind of purpose that it fulfills. If there's just some random thing that happens and it's just like an ad hoc random event, then yeah, I don't see any way to tie that to God. But if there seems to be some kind of purpose that's fulfilled through this bizarre event, there's a good chance that could be a miracle.
Do you think it would be possible for someone to have an emotional feeling that felt religious to them caused by the brain, that they would then attribute meaning to or purpose in their kind of story of their life or something?
Yes, yes, and the context, specific context, is going to determine which of those two options it is.
And in that case, do you think that it's going to be the more publicly verifiable type miracles, so maybe like, you know, healing a leg or like setting something on fire, that then would give us more confidence maybe than the more private miracles? Like I had this really strong feeling of affirmation at a time in my life when I was down or something.
I don't know if I can agree. If we are operating on the assumption that God does exist, then I'm not sure. I think it could be. I think there's a good chance it could be a miracle.
Yeah, let me sum up here, because I've got one other person waiting, but could be a spammer. What would change your mind? You said it was the finding the bones of Jesus, and then we got delved more in depth, and you brought up the consensus of, let's say, historians say these are the bones of Jesus. That would change your mind. Is that a good summary, Tanner?
That's one of the biggest ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for Nathan, it is something more empirical. It'd be like an amazing miracle that sort of seemingly breaks the laws of nature. Okay, so those are the two things. And Tanner, you said something about that might not be a reasonable marker for Nathan because usually there's purposes to miracles. Is that fair to say, is what you said? That.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And with Nathan, he was asking you questions that might challenge some of the real reasons why you believe, because it's really hard to tell the difference between God doing something, a personal experience, for example, and it just being something in your own head. Is that right, Nathan?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we bridge this divide between, like, Tanner, you're a really nice guy. You seemingly, you're not trying to even convert me or Nathan. Nathan and I are not, I think we've been very civil to you.
Speak for yourself.
How do we bridge this divide, Tanner and Nathan? Like, we're so different in, like, Nathan and I, we kind of need this empirical evidence because we don't want to be fooled. We don't want to be duped. We don't want to say, oh, I have this expectation of God and because of X, Y, or Z, and so I need something that's really drastic, like an amputee getting his limb back and that sort of thing. Do you have any advice for us, or how we can, because I think we understand each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Nathan and I understand you fully, and I think, well, not fully, but since we understand each other, this is not the problem anymore on our differences. Where do we go from here?
Well, the advice I would give, this is just my opinion. I personally don't think that something like that, like an amputee growing their limb back, I don't think anything like that is ever going to happen. So if that's going to be your standard that you need. I don't think that you'll ever
Okay, and
be.
very good. I don't think it's going to happen either because I don't believe your God exists. But do you think we could say back at you, I don't think we're ever going to have a consensus of historians finding the bones of Jesus either? Like there were probably, some atheists believe it probably were eaten up by dogs. Like,
yeah, imagine. So for example, what someone like me believes is that Jesus was probably put in a mass grave, right? And then in that case, we probably will never recover bones that we can with any confidence say this is Jesus. You know, maybe we already have, and it's just some random site that we've dug up.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we're both in a situation where I think you would say our marker is a bit unfair because it will never happen. And we're thinking, well, your marker is a little bit unfair because it's probably never going to happen either. Can we think of markers that we would both agree on that could have a high probability of happening?
Let's see.
Like, is there anything in your scriptures that you would say, yes, this is to be expected? And Nathan and I could say, hey, yeah, if we saw this, that you yourself would say is expected to happen, then we would change our minds. Can you think of anything like that?
Anything from the scriptures that if it happened, you would change your mind?
Yeah, like you said, not an amputee getting his limb back, but is there a different type of miracle that you would say, yeah, that's the type of miracle God would do? And maybe Nathan and I would accept it as a good marker.
No. I, off the top of my head, I can't think of any instance.
You know the line in Matthew when it says, like, which of you, if his son asks for a fish, will give him a stone or something like that? Do you believe that that's in, like, the age of miracle? That verse applies to a time, a dispensation or whatever, where miracles happen and doesn't apply now?
Probably, yeah, probably. Something like that would not happen now.
Then I think Nathan and I are just stuck.
Let's see.
Is there something we could do? Like, could we ask God for help, or would that be like help to believe? And then if he doesn't, it's evidence against God existing. But if he does, then that's evidence he does exist. Or is that too like close to, you know, like healing amputees or something?
Right. Well, the best advice I could give is just have an open mind, keep studying both sides of the debate, and I have enough confidence to say that if you do that, and if you do what it says in Matthew 7:7, seek and you will find, I think if you fairly assess the data, you will conclude Christianity is true.
Yeah, I hear that, and I've been a Christian for 30 years, and I know when Christians hear that, and now I'm an atheist, it makes them throw up in their mouth a little bit. But I think that is the best verse in the Bible. Seek and you shall find, because I think it works in Mormonism, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Islam. If you're seeking hard enough, you're going to find what you're looking for, even though it might not be there. Like your brain will reinterpret what it's seeing to make it fit for something you really want to seek out for. Does that make sense?
Right. Could I respond to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at that point, I think that one of these worldviews is in accord with the evidence, and the others are not. So that's what I would say. And I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any good evidence for Mormonism. I think we can poke holes in that and Islam that we can't poke in Christianity.
Do you understand that a Mormon could say the same thing back at you?
They could, yeah. I've argued with Mormons.
Now, isn't that interesting? Like, you've talked to Mormons, and you can poke holes in their worldview, and I'm sure they could poke holes in yours. Why is it that we're not getting anywhere with that in society?
Yeah, well, at some point, yes, people are going to believe what they want to believe. I think probably most people, that's how they come to their conclusions. It's what makes them, what satisfies them.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. It's to fulfill a need, make people feel better. But this is where I'm coming from, and I think Nathan as well, that Mormonisms and Muslims and Christians and Jews, they agree on some things, but then there's these fundamental disagreements. But when it comes to us empiricists, I'll call myself an empiricist, it seems like if there's a Mormon here right now, or a Jew, a Muslim, a Buddhist, Christian, we all agree that when we take this pen, let go, it's going to fall down towards the ground. There's no disputes. Right. And so this is why Nathan and I value empirical evidence. I'll speak for myself. I value empirical evidence and demonstrations over these other things like historical evidence, because different biases can come together in agreement and say, yeah, I'm seeing what you're seeing, but a Mormon can't see what you see, Tanner. And Tanner, you can't see what the Mormon's seeing. It's like we're so steeped in our worldview is correct. We got the right one. Does that make sense? Of why I value empirical evidence more, because it kind of blows through these biases?
Yes, that does make sense, but empirical evidence can only take you so far. I mean, we're more short.
That's as far as I want to go.
So, do you think George Washington existed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we need a little bit of forensic evidence for that, I think.
Yeah.
We can't establish everything empirically.
Well, I understand that. Well, actually, we could probably dig up the bones of George Washington.
I would claim. Well, hang on. I would claim in that case, right? I would say that we do have like testimony and stuff, and that's sufficient for me to believe something like George Washington existed. If that testimony contained claims like George Washington flew to the UK unaided or something, right? Then I might become a bit more skeptical of that claim without a little bit more, maybe finding some physical evidence of him being here in the UK, and that boats couldn't have carried him, and it have been because that might actually, because then even finding physical evidence of him in the UK might be evidence of some conspiracy that he got on a boat secretly and came across, rather than that he flew, because we've got a way that.
Yeah, does that? I want to. Are we in agreement, all three of us here, that certain claims have different requirements of when most people believe it? Like if a book said that George Washington existed and became president versus a book said that George Washington flew to the UK unaided, are we all agreed that those two different claims require two different levels of evidence?
I guess you want me to answer first.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that to a degree. To put it simply, I completely agree that the evidence that a pen would fall, we need much less than something like.
Yeah, and then the question becomes, if I told you that I walked on water yesterday in my pool in the backyard, and the only evidence I could provide is my testimony, would you believe it?
Right. Well, there's no purpose that's being fulfilled through that. So I'd be apt to not believe it.
Well, what
if we came up with a purpose? Would you then believe it?
Yeah, if we just made one up.
If the purpose that y'all conceive of, if it sticks and you give it 2,000 years and it becomes the most influential purpose of all time, then yeah, I think I'd believe you.
Inshallah, brother. Inshallah.
Yeah. Tanner, what you just said was amazing to me, because basically you're saying that if I walked on water and then after 2,000 years a very influential religion resulted, then you would believe it, but you're describing what you already believe. Your standard of evidence, you're matching to what you already believe. Do you see that?
Right. Well, I was doing that because I thought that's what you were.
But imagine a Christian 2,000 years ago, not a Christian, a person living in the first century in the Jerusalem area, and his buddy comes up to him and said, I saw a guy yesterday walk on water.
Right.
So I think Doug's complaint here is that you're doing something that's sometimes called like hypothesizing after results are known. So you're kind of like looking at what you want and then just picking from that the relevant differences between that and the other case, rather than that being like your standard in the first place, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's what you're doing. You can speak for yourself, but maybe when you think about the types of things that convinced you of Christianity being true, whatever, like this personal experience, for example, maybe it was less so that, and maybe you would have answered differently before you were convinced of the conclusion, you know, to these sorts of questions.
Well, it's completely possible in my mind that back in the first century, someone said Jesus walked on water. They didn't believe him. I think that Christianity it's make or break based on the resurrection. So that's what I always try to bring it back.
But if you were there in the first century, and really imagine yourself the way you are in your brain right now, okay? But take out all the Christian parts, okay? You're in Jerusalem. You actually look like you're from Jerusalem in the first century. And a buddy of yours, came up to you. You kind of know him, but you know, you're not that intimate with each other. And he says to you, yesterday, I saw a guy walk on water. Would you believe him? If that's all you knew, is that his testimony?
Maybe not right off the bat, no.
Yeah. But yet, this is what Christianity is built upon. People we don't really know claiming to have seen something. And if you wouldn't believe it, if a friend of yours said it, why do you believe it if it's in the New Testament?
Well, we do have a lot of claims of eyewitnesses in the Bible.
How many? Like more than 10? Under 10?
Like how many people or
how many eyewitness claims do we have in the New Testament?
Let me try to think. We have 1, 2, 3.
I don't know. They need the exact number, but what's an eyewitness claim to you?
So an eyewitness claim is when we have a trusted source that tells us that there were eyewitnesses. I don't think we need a statement of the person themselves saying.
Whoa. This is where we have a fundamental.
So that is definitely, yeah.
We have a huge
imagine in a
court here, and because when I asked you what is an eyewitness claim, you said a trusted source that has eyewitness claims.
Yeah, I'd happily give an example of that if you'd like.
Okay, well, let me first give my definition of an eyewitness claim, and then you tell me if this is reasonable. If I see a car accident and I say, I saw the car accident, that's an eyewitness claim. I'm telling you firsthand what I saw. Now, if Nathan heard me say that,
I'm from the insurance company, and I say Doug didn't see that. Is that not an eyewitness claim of Doug not seeing that?
Or if Nathan said, yeah, Doug saw a car accident, that's not an eyewitness claim. That's Nathan saying Doug saw an eyewitness. The eyewitness account is, and I think this is actually good that we're talking about this because this is something that always comes up. But do you understand why, or my definition of eyewitness claim, and do you think it's reasonable?
Yes, I understand your definition of it. And I would say that a trusted confidant of yours can also give us that information.
Right, but it's not an eyewitness claim, though. Would you agree with that? It is someone speaking about an eyewitness claim.
I guess we would just define eyewitness claim differently. I'm looking at it like it's a claim of an eyewitness.
Can you imagine? So in the sort of joke that I think went a little bit under the radar, though, like imagine that we're in a court of law and there is some insurance case, right? Doug's been involved in a car crash and he's claiming against my insurance company. I'm a representative of the insurance company, and I report that Doug didn't witness any of the things that he reported that he saw, right? Would you say that that is my reporting there as a representative of the insurance company is just as good an eyewitness testimony of what happened as Doug saying I was there and I saw? Would you say that they're both eyewitness testimonies and they kind of cancel out?
Yeah, based on that context, yes, I would agree with you.
That they're not eyewitness. That the insurance company isn't an eyewitness.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. Okay. So then I think we're all agreed then, because and that's a great way to put it, Nathan, that even if we grant you a little bit of your definition, one is better than the other, right? Like if someone says, and they identify themselves, like I, Doug from so-and-so saw a car accident, it's better than Nathan saying, hey, I know this guy named Doug from so-and-so and he saw a car accident. My eyewitness account is better than his. Would you agree with that?
In that context, yes, but not in all contexts. Like, for example, if Paul, he was friends with Peter, he knew Peter. If he says that Peter was an eyewitness, then I think we can trust that. I think that's trustworthy.
Because
he's a trusted confidant.
But how do you know we can trust him?
How do we know we can trust Paul?
Yeah.
He
about what Peter saw.
I mean, even atheist scholars like Bart Ehrman would say that we can trust it.
Trust what?
Like in his debate with Robert Price on if Jesus existed, he appeals to Galatians 1, where Paul tells us that he met with Peter, and they all knew Jesus existed. And the debate was if Jesus existed.
I understand. You're basically talking about...
Well, how about maybe the question would be, does Bart Ehrman then trust confidants who are reporting eyewitness claims of Jesus resurrecting?
Does Bart Ehrman believe?
So does Bart Ehrman trust that there are accurate eyewitness reports of confidants who saw Jesus resurrecting?
He has said that people had experiences that they interpreted.
Right. Which is that the same as there being eyewitness reports of Jesus resurrecting? Well, I suppose that people having experiences is a different.
Like Doug had an experience of the car accident, but Bart Ehrman would never say the car accident actually happened.
Yeah. It's like me as an insurance company saying in that case, yeah, Doug was on drugs. He thinks he saw all this stuff. But actually there was no car accident and we don't have to pay out.
But yeah, I want to speed this along. So guys like me and Nathan would say that you only have one eyewitness account, and that's Paul. In fact, in the debate between Licona and Ehrman, this came up and Licona conceded that. The rest is basically no one speaks in the first person, says, I saw this. It's all third person. And I know the arguments against, well, we got to throw away all history because a lot of history is that way. Well, yeah, a lot of history is that way, but a lot of history, Christians would not believe a historian in the first century that's not Christian talking about some pagan god coming to earth, dying and rising again, or whatever it is, just because the historian talks about it.
Well, and Luke even describes his motives, right? He doesn't go like, I just want to be as unbiased as possible. He says, so you may have confidence
yeah.
in believing these things. So it's got, that, which is kind of like what someone, again, says who's sort of waving the flag for an ideology or something.
But anyhow, there's a couple other people who want to come on, and but I'll make it much shorter. Thanks for coming on, Tanner.
Yep.
I really appreciate the conversation. I'm not sure who was here first.
Was it the J or the... Yeah, I can't remember.
Hi, John.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. Are you a theist?
I'm an atheist, but the topic I had wanted to bring up is reincarnation.
Mm.
I'm a believer in that.
You're
It's up to you to
You're an
stay-
atheist who believes in reincarnation. Okay, yeah. We'll keep it short though.
Yeah.
When you say reincarnation, you're saying what typically is viewed as reincarnation. People
Yeah.
die and come back to life in a different form.
Yeah,
Okay.
typically in another person.
And Nathan, do you believe in reincarnation? I don't.
I don't believe in
Okay, good.
reincarnation.
Okay. What would change your mind on that, John? That you'd say reincarnation is not true?
I think it would take a better explanation of some of the anecdotal evidence that is out there, which I, admit is not great, but it's convincing to me.
Okay, go ahead, Nathan. You want to explore that?
Okay, so maybe you could talk about some of the cases that you're referring to, but I'm guessing, is it the little like the fighter pilot boy? Is he one of them?
He is one
And
of them, yes.
And so, yeah, but do you want to say what the
And Nathan,
these
can you
cases-
shift to the left? You're right. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm being attracted towards a chocolate bar I've got over there. You see, it's in my mind. I'm like, I want it.
For those of you who don't know, I think I've read that too. A kid who's very young described the events of a fighter pilot in World War II or something.
Yes.
Yeah, and got a lot of the details correct. And so this is evidence that the fighter pilot came back as this boy. Is that a good summary?
Good summary, yes.
Okay, so what would change your mind that story is not true?
I would say if you could provide a substantial explanation for what the parents were reporting was occurring to the young child when the young child was revealing these different details to them about his former life as a fighter pilot. I mean, granted, they could have been making it up, and that's one thing that an obvious one that comes to me is they could be making it up for some.
How about demons were revealing this information to the child and making him say these things, but actually he wasn't reincarnated?
That would be, I would say, equally miraculous, but I'd be surprised if that were in fact the case.
May I ask why you would be surprised about that?
Because the boy relates things as though it's what has happened to him rather than something that is being impressed upon him by some other entity or entities.
Would your confidence be decreased if you knew that the psychologist that interviewed the boy also believed in reincarnation?
I would say it wouldn't be increased or decreased.
Why would a guy like me say that your confidence should be decreased if the psychologist who interviewed the boy about these events one-on-one, she herself believed in incarnation? Do you understand why a guy like me would lower my confidence that it's true?
Yes, because of things like false memory syndrome.
Or just the psychologist pushing
Yeah, exactly.
her
That's
ideas on the
where
kid.
it comes from. False memory syndrome comes from psychologists putting into the minds of the people that they're interviewing.
Does that happen often, do you think?
I would say it happens with psychologists who are not following the proper course of action when talking to their patients about particular things.
Okay, so Nathan, what would change your mind that reincarnation is real?
I mean, I think there are things like personal like if I started recalling memories from a past life or whatever, that would probably change my mind. I'm not saying it should change anyone else's. And then, yeah, I think some of these stories, for example, if we came to find out that the stuff we knew about like memory corruption and stuff was all really bad science and it didn't replicate, which isn't what we found. We found that it is fairly robust. But if we found that stuff wasn't robust, that would reduce my confidence in how I explain some of these sorts of things.
Yeah, what would increase my confidence is if, let's say, just before I died, I wrote down a 12-digit number and I put it in a sealed box, lock, key. And then if someone decades from after my death says, hey, I remember this 12-digit number, it's in this locked key box in the coffin, we dig it up and it matches. Now, that still could be a coincidence, but 12-digit number, I tell you, that would freak people out.
Yeah, that'd be impressive.
And I think it's way more impressive than the evidence you've put forth about this.
Oh,
phenotype.
I would agree that that would be much more impressive. Just what I've learned about the particular boy's story was actually quite impressive to me. Although I do admit it's not enough to give me, certainty. I'm not at like 100%. I'd say I'm closer to about 55-60% in terms of confidence that reincarnation is correct.
Would you say 55 to 60?
Yeah. So I lean towards it, but I'm not like supremely confident.
I think something that is sometimes overlooked that we don't do as well, right, is compare a model of naturalism where there are some question marks about how it is that a boy like says some stories about being a fighter pilot that seem convincing, right, versus a model where people reincarnate, and then we ask questions about, well, what does that mean? Like, what is it that's reincarnating? How does it do it? What does that mean for our fit? It's all of those sorts. We have to compare the questions that are then raised in that reality and how it works to the questions that are left unanswered in a kind of like naturalism, maybe, where we just say, yeah, we don't quite know how that happened, but it's not reincarnation or supernaturalism of some kind.
Yeah, and I would say that at this point, I don't think we have any kind of model naturalistically that would explain an actual transference of knowledge or experience from one person to another person, especially decades down the line where they're not related in any way.
Someone asked in the live stream chat, do you remember any of your past lives?
I don't.
Do you think if one was an AI robot, and what should the default position be? That reincarnation probably doesn't exist unless strong evidence for it, or that it probably does unless we have strong evidence against it? Like, what would be your default position? Reincarnation or no reincarnation?
I think my default position as an AI would be no reincarnation.
How about as you, John?
As myself, I'm convinced by the stories enough to think that it's more probably true, but only barely.
But previously you didn't believe in it, right?
Yeah, I was raised in a religion that didn't believe in reincarnation.
Okay. So it was the evidence that convinced you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm willing to go on from here. I mean, if you want to take the other call.
And what, remind me, what would change your mind on that? If we've shown that the boy's parents fed him these lines, or the psychologist?
Yeah, the psychologist or the boy's parents, or they were just making it up, or something to that effect.
And let's say I found you an article that said something of like what we were talking about earlier, that the psychologist was feeding the boy these lines, that the boy had access to his father's history manuals about this guy. There was in books that he was read to him. Would that affect your confidence?
It definitely would if that were the case. I've researched the case, not extensively, but pretty much, because it interested me, and that doesn't seem to be the case. But if you did have something that would show that otherwise, I'd be interested.
And how about they just plain lied to sell books?
That would be more likely to me than if there was somehow some other kind of naturalistic explanation.
Yeah, because we have examples in history of people lying about things. Like, remember the boy who claimed to go to heaven, or some guy?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And there was what was it? Famous actress made a whole big to do about being reincarnated. I think she claimed to be like Cleopatra in a previous life or something like that.
Yeah.
I think you've got to think again in terms of comparing things. Is it less probable that the boy's parents, right, fed him some information and then lied about him not having access to the information in order to make money or make a news story or whatever, or this claim about like reincarnation? Like, which of those is more probable?
To me, right now, I would think that it's more probable that he actually did reincarnate, but I'm not like overwhelmingly convinced that that's the case.
Do we know how many examples of people remembering past lives are? Like, is it 1% of the population, 5%?
I'm
I
not
don't know
sure
a number.
what the percentage is, but I'm fairly certain it's probably lower than 1%.
Okay. Would we expect, if people are reincarnated, would we expect people to remember past lives or not?
Well, I don't know, because it seems like it depends on, the nature of the past life, and also probably something to do with how our brains work as children.
Like if it happened with this boy, let's say reincarnation is true and it did happen to this boy, wouldn't we expect a lot more boys or people like this to come forth?
I mean, potentially. But again, it kind of depends on why did this boy recall his memories versus so many other people who don't. I'd have to understand what was special about this boy.
Because the boy's family was lying and everybody else wasn't.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a good explanation.
Do you not think that that's evidence of the fact that it's so unique like that is actually evidence of like there being something special in this case, right? That we just don't know about, rather than it being that there's reincarnation generally going on.
But that's also potentially the case. I mean, maybe reincarnation is a extremely rare phenomena and has some kind of explanation for it, why it's happened in just very few cases.
I guess the question is maybe, but why think that explicitly over just like question mark, right?
It's just a matter of the reasonable. I think it's the matter of how reasonable it is to suspect that reincarnation is a general phenomena, given the lack of evidence and general, past life recall or whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, given the lack of evidence, do you think it's reasonable to believe it?
I think it's still reasonable to believe it, but it's not necessarily you should be certain of it.
Like, do you believe you said you were formerly religious? What religion?
I was raised Mormon.
You were raised Mormon, but you don't believe it?
No.
We got testimonies of Joseph Smith and his followers. You don't believe their testimonies?
No, I don't.
But you believe the testimonies of this boy's parents and the psychologist?
I believe that they're more likely.
There were the 13 and the 7 in Mormonism.
Yeah, the 3 and the 8 and the
yeah. It's interesting though, right? Like, because we got two extraordinary claims. One is that Jesus appeared to Joseph Smith and the angel Moroni. And the other claim is a fighter pilot died and became a boy, and the boy remembers the details. They're both pretty big claims. They both have similar evidence.
Yeah, I agree that they both have similar evidence.
But you believe one and not the other, and that's what I'm curious about.
Well, I think that there's more confounding evidence in terms of the claims of Joseph Smith than there are.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because there's more evidence, it's easier to dismiss it, like because some of the evidence is against, right?
Yeah. There's a considerable amount of confounding evidence against Joseph Smith and his claims, whereas there doesn't seem to be that confounding evidence against the little boy and his claims.
That's because there's less evidence. If we had more,
I would agree that it could be that it's because there's less evidence, but it might not be necessarily the case.
Okay.
If you imagine we have like 3 options for explanations, right? One is a true explanation, one's a false explanation, and one's just like a mystery. We just withhold our judgment completely.
Sure.
How would you rank the 3 of them? What from like best to worst? What's it best to have, or what's worst to have?
I'd say it's best to have the we don't know. And then
over a true explanation?
Unless we have a true explanation that we certainly know is true. If we have the same amount of evidence for all 3 of the true, the possibly not true, and the just withholding judgment either way, I think it's best to withhold judgment either way, because if we had the same evidence for for what is true or what is false but plausible for some reason, there'd be no way of determining which of those 2 you would choose.
Yeah, so rather than
So-
we're assuming you're in a like God's eye point of view, and you know what's true and false, right? In this case, so there's no like uncertainty.
Okay.
What how would you rank them in terms of like best to worst? Like a true explanation, a false
Right.
explanation, and like just withholding judgment. So there's a person you're looking at, and you know they can choose from one of those three. What's best for them to do, and what's worst?
Well, if from a God's eye point of view, you know, knowing what is true and what is not, then the true explanation would be best. Then the withholding judgment would be the next best, and then holding to the false explanation would be the worst.
So do you think because of like valuing beliefs in that way, right? If there's like something that's particularly kind of risky or uncertain belief, it might be better to withhold judgment than to commit yourself to something that is like maybe probably, you know, very questionable.
Sure, and that's why I'm only around like 55, 60. And
What
I'm
Nathan
not-
wants to see you down to 49.
I'm not living my life as though I know it's the case, or that I know I have another life coming up after this, or anything like that. It's just something that I personally, you know, tend to believe is probably the case.
Yeah, you're the first atheist I've ever met who believes in reincarnation. So thank you for coming on.
You bet.
Take care.
Thanks, Doug. See you in the chat.
Have you ever met someone?
Yeah, there was a couple of years ago when James and I did an episode on like out of body experiences. There were a few people from like, you know, the psi phenomena world where they're really into all this stuff, kept like reaching out to us and inviting us on their shows. So we went through like a couple of months where we were just talking to loads of these people. But
So thank you for coming on. Here, Cutie, can you find
We got another person from the first century.
Osho.
Yeah, there was.
Nene.
Hi.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
It's going well. You're going to be our last guest today, so be fantastic, okay?
Okay, I'll try my best.
Are you a theist?
Oh yeah, I'm a theist. I'm a student of philosophy, you know, yeah.
Just like Osho was as well, right?
Well, I don't think Osho's legitimate student of philosophy. He's more like human potential movement, using that to brainwash the masses, you know, Esalen Institute type of stuff.
I feel like I've learned a lot about you from that those sentences.
Yeah.
Well, who's this Osho person you guys referring to?
Have you ever
It's
seen the documentary
Yeah.
Wild Wild Country on Netflix? It was like a, I
Yeah,
mean,
he's a
cult
scammer.
is a pejorative. Yeah, people moved in, and there was a big thing between the state and him. Like, and they were,
Yeah,
like,
he's
always
kind of like a
making-
cross between like an Indian guru and like a pimp. Like it's like,
That's
kinda
you're
like-
describing yourself.
No. I'm not a pimp. I'm fasting for Ramadan. You know, I don't even.
Oh,
say
okay.
that,
So you're
you know.
Muslim.
Yeah, I'm happily married. You know what I'm saying? Alhamdulillah. You know.
Okay. So what's the Islamic claim you want to make today, and then we'll explore it and ask what would change your mind.
Yeah, I wrote this book on Christianity here, Christ protagonist or Logos dethroned. You know, so.
Okay, a
everybody wants
little
to-
plug there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I got a channel on YouTube called The Machine Lies.
You should see what Doug did to the last guy who did this.
What? What was it?
I kicked him
he's
off.
a big fan of people coming in. Yeah.
That's okay. Okay, we got that out of the way.
Well,
what's
Well, I just want to say I was a student of philosophy. I just want to say that I have like philosophy lectures online. I mean, I don't know who radically moderate is. You know, I don't know what your position is, or you seem like an atheist, or you know, or
I'm a
or do you
Sunni.
No.
Oh, yeah?
Nathan and I are both atheists, but
do you study philosophy or?
Nathan does.
Unfortunately, not anymore. I'm rehabilitated.
He saw the light and dropped it, like second period
Oh,
French.
okay. So what did you move into instead of philosophy?
Well, I was a software engineer before I went and did my master's in philosophy.
Okay. So so what made you leave philosophy? And you seem like you became an atheist to philosophy instead.
Can
of
I
to
answer for you,
religion.
Nathan? I think I know.
Sure.
He left
Oh
philosophy.
wow!
He left
How
philosophy.
are you gonna let another man answer for you though? You know.
Because I want to
I've-
see if I'm right.
Okay.
He left philosophy because he realized it was a bunch of babbling men and women saying a ton of words and really saying nothing.
Oh yeah. So
pretty much. I got
So
bored of
what are
crossword puzzles.
So what are
actually.
scientists? Scientists aren't that?
No, because they do more stuff that I value in the world, right? So I essentially would measure things by pragmatic success.
So you would measure things by what you value in the world. It's not based on empirical evidence.
Sure, yeah,
That's kind of a different standard of valuation.
Yeah,
isn't it?
well, I think
Than empirical evidence.
both of us would agree that philosophy can be very useful. We're just saying it can also be kind of useless and boring as well.
I think it's mostly useless, and I would also agree I have values that don't come from science.
Yeah, I think I mean I think philosophy is mostly useless as well, but I just want to feel you guys out, you know.
Okay, so you're a Muslim, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
What would change your mind about Islam and for you to leave it?
What would change my mind about Islam?
Yeah.
Well, I think probably just more rigorous. I mean, just more rigorous proofs for what the scientists say would be plausible. How about if science could deliver something other than just pure technological innovation, and that technological innovation kind of turns back on itself and then causes us to have an existential crisis about our place in the world.
What's your first name? I didn't even get your first name.
My name. Well, I'll use my name. The Machine Lies.
The Machine.
From my YouTube channel.
The Machine.
Yeah, usually when I call into shows, I call in as The Machine Lies.
Okay, I'm gonna call you Machine. So Machine, what would cause you to leave Islam and say it's not true?
Yeah, like I said, rigorous, probably scientific proof, would be enough. What kind of scientific proof do you guys have that disproves Islam or anything like Islam?
Well,
because the claims of Islam are very general, and I don't think naturalism itself disproves Islam.
Who are you addressing? Come on,
yeah,
you're shadowboxing.
So what we're doing here in this live stream is we're just hearing a claim. So the claim is Islam is true. Nathan and I don't believe it's true. And then we're going to talk about what would change your mind and what would change ours.
About Islam. About Islam being true.
So be as specific as you can. What would you need to learn, hear, see, say? We're not talking about God per se. We're talking about Islam, because it could be true that a God, creator God, exists and Islam's false. Yes?
That a creator God exists and Islam is false. Well, Islam doesn't make any specific claims beyond there being one creator God.
Okay.
So I don't really think could you elucidate what extra claims that Islam makes?
Well, let's say
other than
that Muhammad
because for example, and I don't mean to be shadow boxing against myself here, but as you have said, but the thing is that I've met deists, who believe in naturalism. So just because you believe in naturalism or empiricism doesn't discount there being a deistic God.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Machine.
Just as Aristotle believed or other people believe.
So what would convince you? What would change your mind that Islam is false and that maybe something else is true? But we're not talking about something else right now. What would change your mind on Islam?
Okay, if science could disprove a deistic concept of a God, just a deistic, because let's move to 3 levels of God. You have a no God, and then you have a God that responds to natural law, which is a deistic God, and then you have a God that is exalted and beyond natural law, which is the monotheistic God.
Could your answer?
I would just like science to prove the second one.
Which one?
Does science have any proofs that disprove the deistic concept of God?
So you would, but your answer, Machine.
Hold on a second.
Your answer,
What's
Machine,
wrong?
is the same answer a Jew could give, a Christian could give, a Mormon could give. It's not unique to Islam, right?
Yes, and an atheist, a person who doesn't believe in any of those religions, somebody who believes in deism,
so the claim is that
believes in science.
So if
how does science disprove God?
So the claim is that if it's possible for science to disprove God, then Islam is true. Why is
What if science disproves God? If science offers proof that disproves Islam, then Islam is false. What proof does science have that
No, if
disproves
science,
an Islamic
sorry,
creator God?
hang on. Just
I don't know why you guys don't
get
understand
angry.
that.
Hang on,
You
so
don't understand that?
no, I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand the connection between the two things. So maybe you could help me out. I'm a little bit stupid.
I just made the connection. I just made the connection very clear. Okay. 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 Look,
I couldn't
look.
hear because I'm stupid though. I need a bit more help.
No. I'm not saying you're stupid.
I'm
but you did say
saying I'm stupid.
You did say I'm shadow boxing myself, but I'm having a clear conversation with you. I'm not speaking Chinese, and you understand what the fuck?
Yeah, but I'm
saying.
stupid. I don't because I'm stupid. So I'm just trying to get a bit of help.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
you
you
need
are
to slow down for me. Yeah, really stupid.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
So-
Okay. I see. Okay, I see. I'll repeat myself if you want me to.
Well, what's the question that I've got for you?
The question that you asked me was, what would it take me to disbelieve in the Islamic concept of God? And
The
I
one
said
I'm trying to get a
my
response
answer
to,
was
so-
rigorous scientific proof, sir.
Okay, can you be more specific?
But you guys understand what scientific proof means, right?
Yeah,
Empirical
to be
evidence,
specific,
right?
can
What
you
guys have been
can you
talking
give me
about.
an example of something that a rigorous scientific proof that you could see that say, I was wrong, Islam is false.
Oh, okay. Just any well, how about there could be 4 different ways to prove this. Okay, and there's 4 different measures to prove this. One would be the creation of the universe. The second would be in the creation of one would be a metaphysical proof. The first would be a metaphysical proof. The second would be which discounts empiricism and all that stuff, but you guys aren't dealing with that. You guys are just dealing with empirical evidence. So then I would say, show me a proof from either the origins of the universe, the origins of the planet Earth, or the origins of mankind that disproves some type of scientific evidence. For example, evolution or something. If evolution could be proven to be true, I would disprove.
Okay, now we got something tangible. So if you
there you go. Yeah. But I thought you guys knew what scientific or empirical proof meant. I didn't know you guys
if you
would
became
claim that
convinced,
level of stupidity.
if you became
If I asked a
convinced,
simple question.
if you became convinced evolution via common descent was true, you would give up Islam?
Well, it would be that it would be proof that something else began the origins of mankind other than
It's a yes or no question.
God being created by other than Adam being created by God. Sorry.
So you would give up Islam if you became convinced evolution via common descent was true?
Yes, because the implications are that naturalism gave birth to human origins.
Okay, that's great. So we got a marker.
Or human origins have naturalistic explanations. But I would also say that just because you believe in naturalism, doesn't mean that you have to disbelieve in God.
Okay, but we found your marker. If that's one marker that would change your mind.
Okay, but
Okay.
But do you guys understand what I said about naturalism?
Yeah, you said that
you don't care. You just have your little game. You guys are shadow boxing
no,
against yourself.
So tell me, if I think that this is the clearest way that the claim you made can be put, right? And tell me if this is right. I heard you say, if science can't disprove God, then Islam or deism is true.
If science can't disprove God, then Islam is true.
Is that what you believe?
Yes, and I believe that science hasn't brought forth clear proofs against Islam.
Why do you think that a naturalist would think that science can disprove God?
Well, what I just now said right before, and maybe you didn't hear me because you're so stupid, is because naturalism. If you believe in naturalism, you don't have to discount a belief in God. I don't think that belief in naturalism. I would say for me, the proof would be sufficient, but I would say for other naturalists, it wouldn't be sufficient enough. So I don't know why you would think What's your claim that empiricism or naturalism, a belief in that, is sufficient to discount a God?
We don't.
So
I don't.
Well,
You don't?
I think naturalism is pretty much the claim that no gods exist, no supernatural.
Yeah, so I don't
entities
claim
exist.
that.
No, because you could have naturalistic monism, you know.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
okay,
then the term sort of ceases to be useful, right?
Maybe
would
for
say.
you, there are philosophers who are panpsychists.
Oh,
There are, yeah.
And you know, they don't claim to be stupid guys. They claim they actually claim to be
Well, yeah,
smart
they wouldn't
guys.
say that, right? Because
okay, so
they're in on the racket.
the title of this live stream is "What Would
What
Change
racket?
Your Mind?" So I'll say what would change my mind about Islam. If and it's very similar to Christianity. If someone prayed in the name of Allah for my water-soaked napkin to be lit on fire, for an amputee to get their limb back, some type of...
That's not how Allah works. That's not how the Quran says Allah works.
But Machine, I'm just telling you what would change my mind. So if he doesn't...
Yeah, but why are you making a claim for proof outside of my religion?
I'm not making...
So why did you tell me that science should disprove God when I don't think science should disprove God, right? I could do the same thing if I wanted.
So Machine, I'm just giving you what would change my mind. Now, if you're saying...
You guys know who Avicenna is?
If you're saying that Allah doesn't work that way, then I'm stuck.
Insina, not some sort of like Westerner who uses Latinized names.
So Machine, you would say that's an unfair marker for me?
What was that? I'm sorry, I got mixed up.
Would you say that you're saying that's an unfair marker, unfair thing to change my mind? I shouldn't expect Allah to do miracles?
Yeah, you shouldn't expect Allah to do miracles for you upon hearing the prayer of another person. That's not how Allah works. Allah doesn't deliver miracles upon prayers that are offered by people.
Okay.
There's no claim by Islam that says that.
Is Allah capable of doing it though?
Yeah, Allah is capable of doing miracles.
Okay.
But Allah does not do miracles upon request.
So do you ever ask Allah to heal someone
like
that's
this
sick?
is why I'm asking, this is why I was asking. I'm sorry to cut you off, Pinecreek, Mr. Pinecreek.
You said Allah doesn't do miracles upon request?
Well, I was saying that, look, Avicenna believes in miracles, okay? I'm sorry, Avicenna believes in empiricism and he believes in Allah.
Okay, I don't know how any of that's relevant.
And not only that, Avicenna is the founder of modern empiricism.
I don't know who that. I don't know or care who that is. Yeah,
and not Aristotle. He didn't read Aristotle.
Actually, it might be easier, Nathan, if it's just me and him because he's very talkative.
Yes.
Well, Aristotle is a.
So hey Nathan, thanks for coming on though. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry, Doug.
I missed you.
Right. Yeah. Yes, you're right.
Have a blessed one, Nathan.
So my question to you was: do you ever pray to Allah for someone that you love that's sick?
Yeah, sure. But I don't expect Allah to heal them.
You don't?
There's no claim that Allah will heal them. Yes, it's not Christianity, friend.
I know, but does Allah ever heal, in your opinion?
Everyone that's ever been healed or ever been sick is because of Allah.
And do you think some people prayed for that healing? And Allah heard their prayers?
Sure, but it wasn't because they prayed that Allah healed them.
How do you know that?
Because Allah does things 100% according to His own will. That's what Allah says.
Okay.
I think if there was a supreme power in the universe, right? I think that supreme power would do things 100% according to their own will.
So why do Muslims pray then?
Because they're following Allah's will.
Sorry, intercessory prayer. Like, why would a Muslim pray for their sick friend then if they know that Allah is just going to do what He's going to do anyhow?
Because they're following Allah's will. Because Allah willed them to pray, so they pray.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, can you disprove determinism in philosophy? You know, see, it comes back to philosophy. Science doesn't have clear proofs against determinism.
May I ask why your brain does what it does? Like, we're talking about prayer and healing, and you go to determinism and philosophy, and like, why do you always do that?
Well, you're talking about scientific proofs of God.
I'm talking about, I want to see a miracle.
What is my brain doing that's such a fucking problem for you, man?
I'm letting you know what would change my mind, and you're saying Allah won't do it. Right? So I'm stuck.
Well, why do you require proofs of Allah? For you to believe in something?
Oh, well, because I'm just like you. You need proof too.
No, I don't. No, I don't need proof. I don't need proof. I just look around. I see the order of things in the world, and I say something's got to be in charge here. Something's got to be in charge here, Pinecreek.
Okay, but that could be Jesus.
It could be Jesus, but Jesus is a man.
It could be Vishnu.
Vishnu is again anthropomorphized.
It could be Ganesh.
That's again an elephant.
Now, what would it take you to believe that a different God other than Allah is actually?
Hey, how do you know? Hey, how do you know there's not one God in control of the whole universe?
It could be, but
how do you know that?
It could be.
So it could be.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't discount.
But let's say it is Ganesh. Would you need proof before you believe it?
Or would I need proof before I believe in Ganesh? Can you disprove Ganesh?
No, can you?
No.
So maybe we should believe in Ganesh.
Maybe Ganesh is real.
I gotcha.
No. No, it's not a gotcha thing. It's not a gotcha thing. There's one religion from all of
We can't disprove Ganesh. We might as well believe in him.
No. I have a figurine of Ganesh and I'm a Muslim. I have a figurine of Ganesh and I'm a Muslim. Disprove Ganesh for me. Go ahead.
I can. So maybe I should believe in Ganesh and not Allah.
If you can't disprove Ganesh, then why do you say that Ganesh didn't exist?
Well, I'm saying that maybe he does, and maybe since I can't disprove Ganesh,
you're saying maybe Ganesh exists, and I'm saying maybe Ganesh exists.
Yeah,
we're not even saying any different fucking things.
Right. So
why? What do I have to prove to you about our agreement? No. You just said we agree. How? What do I have to prove to you about our agreement that we're having? Pinecreek.
Why shouldn't we believe in Ganesh?
Why shouldn't we?
Yeah, why shouldn't we?
Yeah, why shouldn't we believe in Ganesh, Pinecreek?
Yeah, I'm asking too. Maybe we should.
Maybe we should.
Maybe we should.
I believe nobody makes anything up.
Yeah, then we should believe in all the gods. We should be polytheists then.
I think belief in all the gods is more true than belief in no God, friend.
Say that again.
Belief in all of the gods concurrently is more true than belief in no God.
Are you a polytheist?
No, I'm not a polytheist.
But you just said you should believe in all the gods?
Yes, I think no. I said it's sensible to believe. It's more sensible to believe in multiple gods
than one God?
or a deistic God than no God.
Oh, I believe that's what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't know how you don't understand.
Oh, I thought you were saying that.
Do you think that's irrational? Do you think that's irrational? Many people on your show came on, and I didn't see you prove to me or prove to them that that's irrational.
It never came up.
Okay, well, it came up now. So how do you address that?
I address it by saying that, to me, I think it's more reasonable to believe that there's one category of existence, naturalism, than introducing a new category of existence of which the evidence is lacking.
Where did that one category of existence originate from?
It didn't.
So how do you know that there's one category of existence if it has no origin?
Depends on your definition of knowledge, but if your definition of knowledge is not an on and off switch, and it's a problem.
Wait, you're doing philosophy.
I know. And I'm pretty good at it.
Why do you do this? Why do you do this, Pinecreek? Why do you do this, Pinecreek? You bring up philosophy every time when I'm asking you for other things, man.
But this is fun.
Now it's about a different subject about what knowledge is. Come on, dude. You're moving the goalposts, friend.
So
now you want to talk about philosophy. Let's talk about epistemology. You want to talk about that?
I've been going for 4 hours.
Oh, good for you. I've been going for longer than that.
Can we review what would change your mind about Islam? And you said if science could prove.
Yeah, which it hasn't.
No, did you say prove or disprove? Disprove Allah.
Yeah, and naturalism isn't the proof.
But you also
there's
said that
people
you
who
can't
believe in
disprove
naturalistic-
Ganesh. But you also said you can't disprove Ganesh.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Ganesh was a long time ago. I don't know if Ganesh wasn't around at that time. I don't fucking know. I don't know, Pinecreek. Neither do you. You said you don't know. You said you don't know. You don't know, Pinecreek. You don't know if Ganesh was real. That's what you said. Neither do I. We agree.
It's more likely he didn't, though, as a god, right? Are we agreed on that?
Huh?
Are we agreed that's more likely that Ganesh is not real and just a figment of
I don't
human
know. I don't
imagination?
know if we devolved. I don't know if there was people living in caves that were like monkeys, and then we evolved from those people to be smart people who have science and technology, or if we devolved from people like Ganesh. I don't know that.
But you did say that what would change your mind about Islam is if evolution via common
Nobody
descent
does.
was true. So why? What would you need to learn about evolution to believe it?
What would I need to learn about evolution to believe it?
Yeah.
I guess it would be a descent, like you said, a common descent, like how Darwin says. I have a book on Darwinism, and it says that Darwin thought that that black people were closer to monkeys, and that the white races will conquer the world, leaving a gulf between the monkeys and the white races, that there'll be an even bigger divide between the monkeys and the white races, because all the brown and black people of the world are intermediaries between white people and monkeys.
What would convince you evolution via common descent is true?
So I think that's a stupid belief. Don't you think that's stupid?
Well,
Don't you think Darwin is stupid for thinking that?
yeah, but that doesn't mean he's wrong about evolution via common descent. So what would it take for
Well,
you?
that's how we explain those things. So I think that's stupid.
So what would it take
And
for you to believe
know,
that evolution via common descent is true?
what would it take me for me to believe that evolution via common descent is true?
Yeah.
I already told you scientific proof.
Be
Okay,
more specific. What would you need to see? What experiment?
Do you believe in evolution?
Via common descent? Yeah.
What convinced you? Maybe that'll convince me too.
Well, what convinced me, I think, is I'm going to actually say something silly to start.
That's fine.
This is the very 5-year-old answer. Going to the zoo is number one. Have you been to the zoo? You look like a guy who loves the zoo.
I think the zoo is a savage place. I think they should free all those animals.
Oh, well, okay, you might have a point there. But have you ever gone to the zoo and gone to watch the monkeys and the gorillas, the apes, the bonobos, the chimpanzees, and see yourself in them?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. That's why I think that we should free them suckers.
Okay, well, there you go. So we do, with our own eyes today, we can see the commonalities, and one can say that's the way Allah made it. Okay, fair enough. But
of course, it's the mark of one designer. You know what I'm saying?
But we have a situation where we have at least, I don't know, 5 different major fields of science, of people of different biases, like Muslims, Christians, Jews, atheists, Hindus, who are scientists, who, even though we haven't figured everything out, and there's still problems with mechanisms and all that, we have come to an agreement that we most likely evolved from a common ancestor.
Look, here's what it says in the Bhagavad Gita. All right, it says that of the body there is no
Why are you talking about the Vedas when we're talking about evolution right now?
The Vedas directly address this question.
And the question is whether or not evolution is true?
Yeah.
Okay. So what did the Vedas say, and why do you believe the Vedas, I guess? Or not?
Well, I'm not saying I believe the Vedas. I'm just saying that in ancient times, okay, if you go to Plato, if you go to the Hindus, if you go to different people, they all make a similar claim, and they claim that we devolved from higher level beings.
Okay, and why are you telling me this?
Because I think it addresses evolution. And because I think that you said that the claims of different religions are mutually contradictory, when I think they're mutually supportive.
We're talking about evolution right now.
Yeah.
And I said that different religions, different people from different cultures, in different scientific fields agree that evolution via common descent is true.
Yes, and it doesn't disprove religion. Curiously
We're
enough.
not talking, but we're talking
You know what
about
I'm
we're talking about evolution because you said
Yeah.
that if evolution is true, Islam is false.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah, and
I
said-
asked you.
and I asked you, what's a common? What proof do you have that evolution happened? And you said you went to the zoo and you saw different monkeys and shit, and they said they look like humans. That's retarded.
And then
That's
what
retarded.
did I say after that? You remember what I said after that?
No, go ahead and repeat yourself.
You seriously don't understand me talking about different cultures, different biases, people of different religions.
And that's when I started talking about Hinduism, because I'm talking about a belief system that's vastly different from mine, but it believes the same thing. I was gonna plug in.
I would love to study you in your natural habitat.
Yeah. Okay.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, I guess if your people think that's funny, fair enough.
Your people?
Yeah, your people, man.
What does that mean?
You know, I don't know who these people are. Or you said there's various claims made across different cultures.
Yeah.
And you think they're mutually unsupportive. Is that where you're going with this?
Mutually supportive, yeah.
And then you made a joke about me being like an animal.
You are an animal. So am I.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You're an animal that has more hair than me. I'm more of a hairless
Yeah,
cat.
I just don't think it was very funny.
What, that you're an animal and I'm an animal?
Just whatever you said about like this, like you.
I'm
like
just
to
saying you're a
study
very
my
interesting
natural
guy.
Habitat. Yeah.
You're very interesting. That's what I mean. I would love to study you in your natural habitat.
Well, I mean, Pinecreek. I mean, I love talking to people, but like, I mean, I don't know. Do you think you're interesting?
No.
Do you think you're an interesting guy?
Well,
you're on the internet. I mean, you're on the internet. You're talking to people. I mean,
you're way more interesting than me.
I am?
Yeah.
You know, I got only 280 subscribers. It seemed like the people have spoken. You're way more interesting than I am. People want to hear you, not me.
Well, that's because you probably haven't been doing this as long as I have. And really, I'm nothing.
How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this since 2016.
2016. Okay.
How about you?
Okay. I started my YouTube channel like 2 years ago.
Oh yeah. In 4 years you'll be way more popular than me.
Yeah.
You'll have 3 wives. You'll have 30 kids.
Well, I only need my one wife. You know what I mean? I'm fine with my
With Islam you're allowed 3 though, right?
It's 4.
4?
I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 4, yeah.
Do you want to have 4?
No, but can you see how that would add value to society?
For you to reproduce?
Yeah, of course. If you believe in evolution, wouldn't you want people?
No, you know, you're right, and you'll appreciate this about me as an atheist. I'm one of those few atheists that say that atheists should have more kids, or just people in general. But you got to afford your kids, right? You don't want to be dependent on society.
Yeah, and what better healthcare in old age is there than having lots of kids?
Yeah, I want my kids to change my diaper.
Yeah, that's what my dad is doing for his dad upstairs. You know, he's changing his diaper for him.
Seriously, well, good for him.
That's right.
Good for
That's
him.
right. That's right. That's how we treat each other.
Yep.
You know, we don't got no old folks homes. We don't have any of that because we like to have lots of kids. You know, my dad had lots of kids. You know, we stick around for him. We help him out.
Yep. Well, I'm from a Mennonite heritage, and yeah, we're very family oriented, and that didn't change just because I became an atheist. I still believe in family values.
Yeah, but I think that religion promotes stronger family values than it.
No, you could be right about that.
Than secular humanism. Actually, secular humanism purposefully disvalues families. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, part of me agrees with you there too. Yep. Like when when people get paid money to have kids out of wedlock, teenage pregnancies, and they're kind of rewarded through some social services, it takes the need for the father away.
Yeah, and that's why one of the things I think is a great value. I think family is a cornerstone of society. And
I agree.
like Radically Moderate said, I was listening to Radically Moderate. I'm sorry he went away, but you know, the thing is that I was seeing how he said that it wasn't empirical values that brought him to atheism, but his values. You know, the values that are added by science and technology to society, and he thinks that he finds those values to be good enough for him to support such an enterprise, right, of secular humanism. You know, and I think that's why most people support atheism. It has nothing to do with any proofs they have, because you're over here asking people for proofs, but it's really your value based.
I actually don't. I hate that word, proof.
Yeah, I hate it too.
We're starting to have some things in common, and that scares me.
Yeah. Yes.
I wish I could have your hair. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyhow, thanks for coming on. I haven't eaten and peed in a long time.
Yeah, me either.
What are you
I'm
smoking?
fasting for like 6. Huh?
What are you smoking?
I'm smoking some cannabis, sativa, sour diesel.
I had an eye problem, and I considered doing that. Does it help the eyes?
Oh, it's excellent, especially sativa strains. I think it'll be excellent for that. You know, it hits you right between the eyes. You know,
it lowers the pressure, right?
Yeah, intraocular pressure. Yeah, that's absolute.
So if I ever get glaucoma, I think I'll start smoking what you're smoking. Can you hook me up?
Well, where do you live at? Right. Well, we could be friends, Pinecreek. You know what I mean? I don't mind being friends with you.
Oh, that would be funny if it ends up you and I sharing a program together, smoking.
I wouldn't mind that either.
Okay, take care. Have a good day.
Okay, have a blessed one.
Thank your father for me for taking care of your grandfather.
Of course, I appreciate that.
Okay, see ya. That took an interesting turn. That took a very interesting turn. See, there's a lesson to be learned here. It went from like seemingly a really useless conversation to, I think we sincerely bonded there at the end. Isn't that weird? That's weird. And it went from, and now don't take offense, Machine, if you're listening, but it went from me viewing you as just a crazy person, and you could be, to a more human, relatable person when we start talking about family, your dad, things we have in common. This is the key to having good conversations. And the problem is so often we don't lead with this stuff. Like if we were to flip the conversation and what we talked about at the end, values that we share in common, and then talk about God or whatever, maybe it would have gone completely differently. Yeah, I like that. There's a lesson to be learned there. So next time if you're an atheist listening and you're in a conversation with a Christian, and Christians, same thing, really focus on the things you have in common, the shared values. Make it more human instead of philosophical or syllogistical or argumentative. Make it real first. And then maybe, just maybe, it will help the conversation later. As I say to my wife, I love a happy ending. This is why I don't talk about this crap anymore, Pinecreek. Yeah, I understand, Nathan, and I'm experimenting with new formats on my show, as you can see. I think Nathan, we had some great conversations today. But I'm like you, Nathan. I'm getting tired of reviewing apologetic arguments, even philosophical arguments, of course. I just wish more theists would have the courage to just come on and realize, like, it's going to be okay. I mean, we don't have to fight. We don't have to prove each other wrong. We don't have to win. Let's just try to understand each other. Better. I'm trying to get the TikTok guys back, but they think it'll just be a debate. Yeah, Oak River, tell them I got a new format. Maybe that will help. Time for some marketing. Yeah, I suck at marketing. I need you guys to do it for me to get the theists in. Okay, let's go back to the Masters. Golf. Poof. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks for the donation, Bob. Just in time. 302. Great work, great stream. I appreciate it. Your blessings will be from science.